essentially being on tour. How do I have tools that can leverage myself where there can be more of me?
Listen, there's a good chance somebody's trying to hack your website right now. You gotta make sure you're covered. I'm talking about enterprise-grade security built into your site and fully managed for you. Check this out. First up, prevention. The Wix platform is secure by design. Security experts are in the dev process, performing threat modeling, penetration tests, and designing code reviews. And you get a strong encryption for your data in transit and data at rest. E-com sites? Wix is compliant with the highest level of PCI DSS, and it doesn't stop there. The top international privacy and security regulations, they're all in place. You see, it's all about staying ahead of the game with real-time detection. Wix security never sleeps. Never. 24/7, 365. The Security Operations Center is on a mission to monitor and hunt down threats. Plus, anti-DDoS protection, data analysis, machine learning. And let's not forget, the #1 rule in cybersecurity is nobody is 100% unhackable. That's why Wix goes all out with a bug bounty program for independent security researchers, aka ethical hackers. And that's not all. It's time for response. Even in the unlikely event of an extreme situation, your business stays up and running. The IR team gets it done. They're trained to act fast, and there's a BCP for reliable continuation and smooth recovery. So look, you take care of business. Security's on Wix.
Hey, Ruben, follow, I guess. There we go. I followed you. Now you have to follow me back, you cunt. All right. Here we go. Yeah, I'm streaming. All right. I was just gonna watch some videos that I put on my watch later list on YouTube, and then I was gonna play Total War Warhammer 2. Whoa. There we go. That's better. Is it? What if I do this? Is it better now? Can you still see in this area? Dope. That must mean that the internet's going a lot better, doing a lot better. I hate how Warhammer, fucking every single time that you click outside of the screen on Warhammer, it exits out. You know how to... I wonder if anyone knows how to fucking stop that from happening. Alright, we're gonna watch this.
When you're launching a new product with a tight deadline,
2 weeks?
Grammarly's tone suggestions.
Je pense donc je suis. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. One of the most, if not the most, famous statements in the history of philosophy. Yet, as with so many famous philosophical aphorisms, the meaning of this phrase is often less familiar to people than the phrase itself. And so today, we're going to explore a little bit of the philosophy of René Descartes, who coined that phrase, and uncover what I think, therefore I am actually means. But even if you are already familiar with the meaning of this maxim, your interpretation will not be the only one that exists. For example, did you know that a number of respected scholars are of the opinion that I think, therefore I am is actually a mistranslation of Descartes that subtly obscures what he was really trying to express? More on that later. For now, I want to start at the basis of Descartes' philosophy to understand what he was actually trying to do when he stumbled upon this famous phrase. René Descartes belonged to a school of philosophers known as the rationalists, which also famously included the thinkers Spinoza and Leibniz. These were men who believed that there is such thing as innate knowledge. They believed that there is such a thing as a priori knowledge, which Immanuel Kant defined as knowledge that is absolutely independent of all experience. A priori literally means from what comes before. For rationalists, there are truths, like 2 + 2 = 4, perhaps, which can be known prior to any observation or experimentation. That is, we can come to knowledge through reason alone. For comparison, the great intellectual nemesis of rationalism is called empiricism. Empiricists believe that all of our knowledge ultimately arises
dope.
from our sense perception.
followed me
That is,
back.
from our observations
Sick,
of
bro.
the outside world.
Thanks for the follow.
David Hume is perhaps the most famous member of the empiricist school of thought, and he argued that, for example, the only reason you can have a concept of, say, a unicorn in your mind is because you've observed in the past, say, a horse, and you've observed horns, and you can put these together in your mind to create what Hume would call a complex idea. Complex ideas like that of a unicorn obviously
actually,
don't
I don't wanna
arise
do
directly
campaign.
from our observations of the world, but the simple
Campaigns,
ideas from
continue
which they're
campaign.
built, like a horn or a horse, can only be known about through what we've observed. Ultimately, all of our knowledge comes from the external world, and there is no innate knowledge, only that which we've learned through observation.
That's bullshit.
Now, this kind of knowledge is called a posteriori knowledge, knowledge which comes from our sense data.
So I would assume
And you can see that the words
Descartes
a
is,
priori and a posteriori
religious
contain prior and post. That is,
Maybe he
before
is, but-
and after. A priori knowledge is knowledge that comes before any kind of observation or experimentation. A posteriori knowledge is knowledge that comes after experimentation and observation.
Well, like, there is knowledge. There's definitely knowledge that comes before observation. Like, how did mothers know to breastfeed their children before they, observed it? How did the first human beings know to breastfeed their children?
And this is the key distinction between the
that's
rationalists and the empiricists. And when Descartes set out to write his most famous work, he was attempting to discover what kind of a priori knowledge might exist. What, if anything, can we know to be
damn, I
true
got a lot of
beyond
money.
any doubt, without having to rely on observations or experiments, which, after all, could be illusory or false? Can there be such a
sweet.
thing as philosophical certainty on any subject? To find out, we'll turn to that famous work called Meditations on First Philosophy to discover how Descartes got to I think therefore I am, or as
Aw,
the
man.
scholars like to call it,
Why can't
the
I,
cogito.
Local requirement is not... Ah,
Descartes
I've
begins
gotta-
his
I've gotta
meditations
go
by
back.
recognizing a problem of skepticism. How
Gotta
can
go
we
back
know
over
that
here.
anything is true? How can you know that anything exists? After all, it's possible that your senses are deceiving you and the world is an
That
illusion.
shit always
It's possible
fucks-
that you're
fucks
actually
with me,
dreaming
bro.
right now.
Like-
Usually when we're dreaming,
or what
we're
if
not
you're just
aware
like,
that we're dreaming.
like crazy, and none of the shit that you like see is actually real, and you're just...
You need not
Aw,
grow weary
fuck.
of battle,
Alright.
my lord. You do not need to
I'm just gonna do an
oversee every
auto resolve.
skirmish in person.
I don't feel like...
There are many gods of war on this world, and they will take an interest whether you do so or not.
Sweet. Which one should I do here? Should I sell off? Should I enslave them? Or should I, eat captives? What? You can eat them with with these people? That's fucking crazy. Replenished food, leadership. I think I'm gonna enslave them. Yeah, enslave them.
Yes, yes. Slaves work, then die.
What the fuck?
Your kind are known for its backstabbing ways.
dreaming and think that we're having real experiences.
I fucking hate how
So
it
who's
does
to say
this.
that this or something like this isn't happening right now? Or to try to discover what we can know with certainty and avoid these kinds of doubts, Descartes therefore decides to take anything that it's even minutely possible to doubt and treat it as false. If it's possible to conceive of a belief
Fuck
being
off,
false,
bro. I don't need
he
you to
treats
talk
it as
to
if
me.
it is false, so that whatever's left over will only be that which we can know with certainty. This way, we can find
I
a
don't like doing
rock-solid
these missions. I just like
intellectual
fucking around in
foundation
this game.
upon which we can hopefully build up our other beliefs. But this foundation must be something that it is impossible to doubt. Here Descartes introduces his famous evil demon. He writes, "I will suppose, therefore, that some malicious demon of the utmost power and cunning has employed all his energies in order to deceive me. I shall think that the sky, the air, the earth, colours, shapes, sounds, and all external things are merely delusions of dreams, which he has devised to ensnare my judgment. I shall consider myself not as having hands or eyes or flesh or blood or senses, but as falsely believing that I have all of these things. A modern equivalent of this thought experiment that's often used is that of being a brain in a vat. So if you don't like the evil demon that Descartes proposes, just imagine that instead you are a brain in a vat and all of your sense experiences are just illusions and that somebody's deceiving you that way instead.
No, fuck you. I'm not paying you.
So, for argument's sake, Descartes says, it's all false. I don't have hands. I'm not sat in front of a camera. My memories aren't actually real. Descartes even doubts mathematical truths, saying that a powerful enough deceiver could make it such that, quote, I too go wrong every time I add 2 and 3, or count the sides of a square. I mean, it's possible, right? And remember, as long as it's possibly false, we're going to say that it is false, so that what's left over is what we can know beyond doubt. So this is where Descartes ends the first meditation, by taking all of the beliefs that he can possibly doubt and acting as if they're false.
This is your brain when you're struggling to focus. And this is your brain when you're in the zone, but getting in the zone.
So serious are the doubts into which I have been thrown as a result of yesterday's meditation that I can neither put them out of my mind nor see any way of resolving them. It feels as if I have fallen unexpectedly into a deep whirlpool which tumbles me around so that I can neither stand on the bottom nor swim to the top. So that's where we're up to, kids. Quite a miserable condition, I think you'll agree. But it's here, in the second meditation, that Descartes finally finds a ground for his feet. Descartes asks, if my hands don't exist, nor the world, nor my memories, etc., does it follow that I do not exist? No.
Fucking creepy.
I must.
Oh, that's where I think, therefore I am. So he's saying that all of your experiences might not be true, but but at least you know that you exist because you think.
Exist in some form.
That's
Maybe I don't
creepy.
exist as Alex O'Connor, a male Homo sapiens with hands and feet and a need for a haircut, but I must exist in some form.
Like
How can I know this? Well, because even if I'm being deceived entirely by an evil demon or by somebody controlling my brain in a vat, there must be a me to be deceived. I can't deny my own existence, because if I denied that I existed, who's doing the denying? An evil demon can convince me of all kinds of falsities, but it can't convince me that I don't exist, because there needs to be a me to be convinced of this. Remember, Descartes' method is to take anything that can be doubted and treat it as false. But doubting whether or not I am thinking is a special case, because doubting is a kind of thinking. Since doubting is a kind of thinking, by doubting that I'm thinking, I automatically prove that I am thinking, because the very act of doubting is an act of thinking. It would be impossible to doubt that I'm thinking, because this would amount to thinking that I'm not thinking, which is a contradiction in terms. And so, as long as I am doing some thinking, well, I am. I am thinking simply contains...
You fucking cunt, bro.
I am. And as soon as Descartes even begins to doubt everything that he can, he's already thinking, since to doubt is to think. And so as long as I'm doing some kind of thinking, I can know that I exist, at least in some form. That is to say, I think, therefore I am. That exact phrase, I think, therefore I am, doesn't actually appear in the Meditations, but Descartes uses other words to express exactly the same point. He writes of the evil demon, "Let him deceive me as much as he can. He will never bring it about that I am nothing, so long as I think that I am something." So, after considering everything very thoroughly, I must finally conclude that this proposition, I am, I exist,
So did he
is
actually never
necessarily
say, "I
true
think, therefore I
whenever
am,"
it is
then?
put forward by me or conceived in my mind. That is, whenever I am thinking, I am. Now, there's a lot to be said about this and whether Descartes is actually correct, but at the very least, this should explain what Descartes meant when he wrote the Cogito, and, more to the point, why this is the first thing that he addresses in the Meditations. Simple as it may seem, Descartes now thinks he's established something undeniable, something immune to doubt, and so, hopefully, something that we can begin building the rest of our worldview upon.
Okay.
But as I say, there's still a lot more to discuss about the Cogito. I think, therefore I am, sounds a lot like a deduction. It sounds like we have one statement, I think, from which we deduce a conclusion, I am. It seems like Descartes is offering an argument here, then. That is, a statement of premises and a conclusion that's deduced from it. But there's a debate in the literature about whether Descartes intended to present the Cogito as an argument, or rather as a singular intuition. To get to grips with this debate, let me first define an important term. A syllogism is an argument that takes the form of a major premise, a minor premise, and a conclusion. All men are mortal, Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. Now, John Cottingham, in his wonderful commentary on Descartes, writes that we could understand the Cogito to be a form of syllogism, which would look something like this. Premise 1, whatever is thinking exists. Premise 2, I am thinking. Conclusion, therefore, I exist. This argument is valid, which means that if the premises are true, the conclusion must also be true. And this is how logical argument is usually done. It's natural for us to try to syllogize Descartes in this way. We're used to thinking of logical validity as occurring when you have a set of premises and a conclusion that follows from them. But Descartes himself responded to this when replying to objections to the Meditations, writing the following. When someone says, I am thinking, therefore I am, or I exist, he does not deduce existence from thought by means of a syllogism, but recognizes it as something self-evident by a simple intuition of the mind. That is to say, coming to know that I exist isn't a process of deductive reasoning like you find in a syllogism, but rather a single, unified, instantaneous intuition that I only know to be true while I'm thinking about it. The philosopher Peter Markey writes that intuition is distinguished from deduction by the fact that it does not involve a movement of thought through a series of inferences, and by its immediate self-evidence. And the passage from Descartes that I just quoted seems to very heavily imply that Descartes is thinking of the Cogito in the sense of an intuition.
Fuck off, bro.
Rather than the sense of deduction. But it's never quite that simple, of course, in philosophy, because in 1648, Franz Berman interviewed Descartes and pressed him on this question of whether the Cogito is syllogistic. And Descartes responded by admitting that a major premise may be, quote, implicitly presupposed when I arrive at the knowledge of my own existence. But Descartes is clear in saying that the person doing the thinking is not explicitly aware of the presence of such a premise. It's a strange thing to say, given what we've already heard, but this is why, despite Descartes insisting himself that the Cogito is a mere intuition, there is still some debate about whether he was really presenting something like a disguised syllogism. John Cottingham is of the opinion that we should interpret Descartes as presenting an intuition, not a syllogism, and for what it's worth, I agree with him. We seem to arrive at the Cogito as a singular intuition based on this special relationship between doubt and thought. As I said earlier, doubting is a kind of thinking, and so to doubt that one is thinking is to automatically rid oneself of that doubt. It's simply the case that I am thinking contains I am. It all just happens at once. So that, to me, says that we should be interpreting Descartes as presenting a singular intuition here. John Cottingham writes that, quote, most logicians are accustomed to thinking of validity predominantly in terms of timeless, non-tensed propositions. But we should rid ourselves of this temptation and understand that the Cogito is only thought to be guaranteed as true when it is being thought. It's the act of doubting that confirms that I exist, not the timeless fact that I am a being that doubts things. It's only when I'm doing the thinking, doing the doubting, that I can know that I exist. Otherwise, for example, I'd have to rely on my memories. Perhaps at one point, I established that I existed because I was thinking, and now I'm not doing that doubting itself, I just remember that I established that, and so I know that I exist. Well, my memories could be false, they could be illusory. I can doubt that my memories are giving me an accurate representation of what happened in the past. So I can't rely on having done the doubting already to know that I exist. I have to be doing the doubting right now in order to establish that I exist. For this reason, the fact that the cogito can only be known to be true when I'm thinking, John Cottingham thinks that I think therefore I am is a misleading translation of what Descartes had to say.
So you think you know Wix, but do you really? First up, we've got shape video masks. You can use different shapes to create complete.
Since Descartes was French, the cogito first appears in French in Descartes' discourse on the method as Je pense donc je suis. Later, he wrote the same thing in his Principles of Philosophy, which this time was written in Latin, and so there we find the more famous formulation, cogito ergo sum. Descartes never wrote in English, and traditionally the phrase has been simply translated as cogito, I think, ergo, therefore, sum, I am. I think, therefore I am. But keep in mind that the cogito is likely not supposed to be a timeless deduction, but something that we can only know to be true when we're reflecting upon it. Descartes notices himself that he could falsely remember having been convinced of something. I can only be certain of the truth of the cogito when I think about it. For this reason, Cottingham writes, the correct English translation should employ the so-called continuous present, I am thinking, rather than the simple present, I think. For what makes me certain of my existence is not some static or timeless fact about me, that I am one who thinks. Rather, it is the fact that I am at this moment engaged in thinking. So, if John Cottingham is right that Descartes' cogito should be interpreted as an intuition rather than the presentation of a timeless syllogism, then cogito ergo sum is best translated not as I think therefore I am, but I am thinking therefore I am, or I am thinking therefore I exist. Now this may seem like a pedantic and useless distinction, but when you consider this debate about the syllogistic versus the intuitive interpretation of Descartes, you realize that this subtle distinction really does make all the difference when trying to interpret Descartes in the English language. To say, I think, therefore I am, implies this kind of timelessness about the truth of the cogito, that it's true timelessly, tenselessly, that's much more characteristic of syllogistic deductive reasoning. Whereas to say, I am thinking, therefore I exist, is more like an act. It lends itself much more to the intuitive interpretation of Descartes and the claim that it's only true, the cogito's truth can only be guaranteed when you're doing the thinking. I think, therefore I am, versus I am thinking, therefore I am. So for this reason, when I'm discussing Descartes, I prefer to translate the cogito as I am thinking, therefore I exist. But look, if you're somebody who prefers the syllogistic deductive interpretation of the cogito, you might prefer to still use I think, therefore I am, the more famous formulation. It's really up to you. Of course, the best thing that you can probably do is learn French and go and read the meditations in their original language, but to be honest with you, I struggle enough to understand Descartes in the English language, so good luck to you if that's the task you choose. A final thing that I want to note is this. The cogito is special for Descartes because it is impossible to doubt, and it's this that allows it to serve, in his view, as the bedrock of his philosophy. But something being immune to doubt is not, in my view, quite the same thing as it being true. Consider an example from Baron Reed, who asks us to imagine a mother who may be psychologically incapable of giving up the belief that her son did not commit a gruesome murder. Or imagine somebody whose brain is literally wired so as to make it impossible for them to doubt that the son is innocent. It seems that the fact that for this person it's impossible to doubt something isn't the same thing as saying that thing is true. For this reason, we might want to make a subtle distinction and say that the real success of the meditations is not so much in establishing truth, but rather establishing psychological certainty, or discovering what it's impossible to doubt. But it's clear that Descartes himself thought that certainty does confer truth. In his third meditation, he describes his inability to doubt his existence as, quote, the first item of knowledge. He also earlier wrote in the second meditation that I am, I exist, is necessarily true whenever it is put forward by me or conceived in my mind. So Descartes certainly seems to think that an inability to doubt a proposition is evidence enough that that proposition is true. But I just wanted to flag that this might not actually be true. And again, there's a lot more to be said about this, and there's a whole discussion to be had around Descartes' criterion for what makes something true or certain. And if you want to learn more about that, well, perhaps I'll make a video in the future, or I would recommend reading John Cottingham's book. I'm going to leave a list of recommended reading for Descartes in the description if you're interested in reading more. But just bear in mind that there's a lot more going on with the cogito than first meets the eye. As I say, whether being unable to doubt something entails that that something is true is a discussion for another time, but I hope that this preliminary overview of the cogito demonstrates that it may well be a lot more complicated and contentious than it appears to be at first. Descartes spends the rest of the meditations trying to prove mind-body dualism and the existence of God, among other things.
Is stupid.
But it all begins here with the cogito, and so I hope that this can serve as a useful introduction to Descartes, if nothing else. I do hope that you've got something out of this video, even if just the ability to go, well, actually that's probably not an accurate translation of Descartes. It's great fun to do that at parties. I'll leave some useful further reading, as I say, in the description. But before I go, just as Descartes wants to protect us from the deceptions of a hypothetical evil demon, I want to take a moment to protect you against the very real evil.
So I want to see what his thoughts on the...
But yeah, I'll bring in Autumn Griper. Autumn Griper, you have some political analysis. I mean, were you surprised at the level of, like we're saying, atrocity propaganda? These stories that increasingly, within hours of them being released now, it's coming out that they're fake. There was video footage supposedly of burned Israeli bodies, and it turned out that they were actually in Israeli body bags, so they were most likely Hamas fighters.
Let's watch meme analysis.
Are you a married man?
Yes, sir.
If your wife died, who would get her money?
I love this girl. Do you?
I'm here to see about these murders.
I'm gonna lose.
You seem nervous. I don't like talking to you.
Is he murdered?
I don't know.
There was no investigation.
What's going on?
Do you want to go home right now?
I'm afraid.
Think
Kill
someone's
that
gonna
thing
hurt
and
you?
then-
Think I'm gonna hurt you?
Killers of the Flower Moon. Rated R. Only in theaters Friday.
Our prices just got better on hundreds of items. From dog and cat food to litter and
They
more.
kill their most powerful shit first. Meme analysis is pretty funny.
Hello, this is Meme Analysis, and today we're going to be talking about the Skibbity toilet, the greatest danger to youth since crack.
The
or maybe
Skibbity toilet.
lead
I haven't seen this meme.
The Skibbity toilet meme has gone from a simple funny video to a massive franchise where children have birthday parties of Skibbity toilet. They have toys of Skibbity toilet. There's a massive obsession with this media. Now, this might seem rather normal, but the danger that we're getting into here is actually something that I've talked about quite a bit in past videos, which is the return of the repressed. Namely, the repressed body. I've talked a lot about the way
so
that
he's
the
gonna be
body
talking about how
disappears
people repress
when we
like
are
shitting.
so obsessed with the digital, with the virtual. Our bodies go away. And what remains from our bodies? It's in things like slime and goo and these toys that we like to play with. And I said in those videos that we like to play with it because it reminds us of shit. reminds us of
It reminds you.
feces.
What? No fucking
Now,
way.
we have gone
That's why people
all the way out. We
play
are
with
no
that
longer.
shit.
We have
This
moved
is because it
past
reminds you of feces.
the point of
There's
civility.
no fucking
to be
way.
quite honest, we are no longer engaging in the civility of at least. Oh, it's slime. It's goop. We're at least pretending that it's not shit. But now, the children are obsessed with toilets, with heads in toilets, with the skibbity toilet.
Uh-oh.
This is an
Yeah.
extraordinary danger, and it might seem like, oh, those darn kids, but it's not. It's not those darn kids. It is children obsessed with shit. The irony, of course, is that
Damn it.
Skibbity Toilet
Fucking lost.
began as a mere shit post.
Huh.
You know, it's a little Gary's mod. Is that what it's called? Gmod?
What the fuck is this
Video
guy doing? He
sor-
looks like he's on meth.
Source code.
You see
Source
that?
filmmaker.
Did you see his fucking
meme.
face that he was
It's a
making?
shit
What the
post.
fuck is he doing?
But the children love it. The
Oh,
children
he's making the
respond.
face of the
It is a
skibbity toilet.
terrifyingly effective
meme.
mimetic virus, a mimetic illness.
Okay.
And what is it attaching to? Now, when we look at a normal virus, we look at a normal illness. Generally, in the body, there is a contact point where the virus infects. You know, oftentimes that's in our lungs. You know, our lungs are receptive to a virus. Or maybe it's our throat. Or, you know, sometimes if you're naughty, it's your genitals. But the skibbity toilet mimetic virus attaches itself to what Freud describes as the anal character, the anal stage of development, where there is a problem that occurs. So in the stages of development, we go through oral, which is breastfeeding. You know, the child is either breastfed enough and they get past it, and they get to the anal stage, or too much or not enough, and so on. I'm not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the anal stage of development.
Is that all that
Now,
I
the
have?
anal stage of development occurs during potty
Problems.
training.
Okay,
the
cool.
child
Now
is
I have
potty
it.
trained, or, you know, God forbid, they are just not potty trained. But the child is either
There we
going to
go.
feel a sense of pride in their ability to control their bowel movements. This sounds really bizarre, but it's true. The
Yeah.
child is either able to hold it in and get to a toilet and poop. They have control. They have mastered a terrible part of our nature. It's scary. If you ever shit yourself, it's terrifying. But alternatively, you can't. There are children who cannot control themselves. They be shitting. They be shitting. And they grow up knowing that they be shitting. This is where we get
They
the
be
idea
shitting.
of you can't keep
Oh
your
shit, I didn't mean to do
together.
that.
You know, get your shit together. They can't. They can't keep their shit together. And thus they become messy people. You know, their life is in disarray. This is an anal character. The anal retentive, the one who holds it in, they are very clean, very organized, very orderly. Now the skibbity toilet, you know, think about also the line, hey, get your head out of the gutter. Or in this case, get your head out of the toilet. This is a stage of development it's a very early stage also, keep in mind.
All right,
that
at
the
least a
children-
lot of his
remember,
people are
these-
close
these
to
are like
dead.
5-year-olds obsessed with the skibbity toilet. What are they? You know, they're only like God forbid, again, in some cases, a few months out from when they were using diapers. You know, this is a really scary obsession with our most base,
She needs something.
disgusting
She can call JJ.
body parts. You know, I love the body, and I've often talked about
what
the
the
need to
I didn't
accept
even notice
shit,
that he was
but accepting
shitting right
shit
now.
does not look like
What the
having
fuck?
toilet toys and doing a skibbity toilet dance. It just doesn't. I think it's a really disturbing and
All right, so we're gonna
miserable
put
trend
these
that it
guys-
has reached such a popularity. That something that is meant to be repressed, something that we are as beings meant to overcome. We're meant to civilize ourselves, to be able to function. And the fact that, you know, and I predicted it with the popularity of slime, that we were going to get to a point where we were just obsessed with shit itself. Let's move a little bit past the initial form that I was talking about before. We were just talking about the idea of the head in the toilet. Let's get a little bit into the content, namely that of camera-headed men opposing the heads in toilets. And we can analyze this perhaps even better than the very simple anal character
what the fuck?
of the Skibidi toilet. When we look at this meme as a dialectic,
We're gonna wait
as an
for-
opposition between the Skibidi toilet
We're gonna
and
wait
the
for them
camera-headed
to
man,
get to
we are given an even clearer vision
the
of one of the most
valley, and
vital
then we're gonna
elements of Freud,
start attacking.
namely the id, those lowest base drives. Those are the drives that want to play in mud, play in filth, and be filthy. Take pleasure in filth.
We're gonna take that
And the
one out
superego.
first.
The superego, I've talked before about the importance of the camera
Looks like
as
he's-
superego,
All right.
of the men in black suits as superego. This could be seen very clearly in the meme, my own personal FBI agent. My FBI agent, guy in a suit, always watching me. So we're given a dialectic here between the lowest drives, which are the thing that the superego wants to control and wants to press down, like Michael and Satan. Skibidi toilet is satanic in that way. It is the lowest trying to come up. And the highest, the surveillance mechanisms trying to keep it down. Of course, in the Freudian metapsychology, in the Freudian
I
drama
don't
of
think
the
that
psyche,
Sigmund
we're
Freud
missing
really
a
got
vital
much
character
right at all, though.
in the Skibidi toilet.
If you want someone who
the ego
is a way
Where
better
is
psychoanalysis,
the ego?
like at psychoanalysis, I
Of
think
course,
that you
if
should
you've
read
seen many of my videos,
Carl
you
Jung.
know that something
I
I've
think
talked about
that
for
he-
a long time is the role of shit posts, of posts and digital content as a schizophrenizing agent, as a schizophrenizing force, which is to say that this mass, endless consumption of infinitely varied content is legitimately fracturing our psyches, and particularly fracturing our egos. The idea of the self has failed to develop when the majority of stimulus in our lives is nonsense. It's not real. It's not our life. The things that we're watching are not us. They're not of us. We're just consuming things that are other people. So how do children, Gen Alpha, make sense of their identity? Their identity is formed entirely by consumption. They can recognize
no,
the,
I'm not.
the id at play.
JJ is, though.
They can recognize that they have these very low impulses and that they have a little bit of shame coming from their parents.
Why?
And from schools and such. But without the ego to recognize, to mediate this conflict,
you probably won't need it.
the superego
there.
loses all its power. It has no thing to play upon. The id is
I can
infinite,
tell her.
endless, and archaic. It's the oldest thing. It's made, every animal
Grab your
ancestor
what?
is id. We know that the ego has been demolished
Your
by
sunflower
media,
seeds?
namely because the camera-headed men always
will.
lose. The id always wins. The shit always blows
streaming.
up and drowns the world. Do I see this on a societal
No.
level? Absolutely.
I'm not coming over.
Let's
Quaid's
go.
getting dropped off here in a little bit. My little brother Quaid is
play
getting
on
dropped off
Roll20?
over here in a little bit, so
Generation
Because
Alpha is the first
he's gonna
raised
stay over here.
without an ego. It is the first generation to exist, to be born in the brave new world.
I don't know.
In many ways, Gen Z
All right, Gab.
is the final human generation. The last
Quaid
generation
is
to be
gonna stay the
born
night, Yep.
with still a degree of material reality. Of course, the digital comes along and upsets it. It alters drastically the life that was being led. But Gen Alpha
because
does not have
he's
this
in
experience
Spokane
at all.
right now.
It's born directly into it. It reminds me of Tom
One sec,
Thumb,
JJ's calling me.
of Harpocrates, of the
Bye.
child in Revelations, the one who is born with the great beast ready to
Hello?
swallow it as soon as it's born. Or as the talking
thought
head
that she
said,
was coming
born
over
under punches. Gen Alpha is born into a huge mess,
Oh, I didn't
a
know
huge
that.
trap, a digital trap. One in which their own upbringing, their own psychology has been entirely directed against
All right.
them
See you later.
by digital forces. The Skibbity toilet is not going unseen. These
Hello?
problems are not going unseen. Parents,
Hello?
teachers, they all seem to know that something is not right, that something is
What?
going wrong. The children can't read. They can barely socialize. They
Can
don't
you
know
what?
what state they live in. I would imagine
Can you
some
what?
of them might not even know their own name. As I said,
I
the
can't
ego
understand what you're
has
saying.
been totally destroyed by the endless
Oh, yeah, I can
stream of content. Parents are even recognizing the Skibbity toilet. They call it the Skibbity toilet syndrome. Well, more in memes, perhaps older siblings,
Yeah.
but it's recognized as a problem. That a fixation on media like this might be a problem. A fixation on shit
All right, I'll see you later.
in mass, in mimetic,
Me too, bye.
in a mimetic way. You know, a viral fixation on filth might not be the best thing. You know, we've always generationally had struggles. You know, I'm sure that the greatest generation looking at the boomers liking rock and roll were thinking, oh, they love this evil, evil stuff. It's very dangerous. But it really doesn't get more on the nose than toilets. You know, that it's not about the devil. It's not about leather. It's not about very silly cartoons. It's about toilets and feces. It's about shit. It's not good. That's in fact, it's one of the roots of the word evil. The word for evil in Greek is extremely similar to the word for shit.
What?
Kaka means evil.
Kaka
shit.
means evil in Greek? That's funny.
There's no getting around it. There's no getting around that we are at a very dangerous point where our youth, the children of the future, because children are the future. Currently, the future is obsessed with heads and toilets. Orwell famously says, if you want to imagine the future, imagine a boot stepping on a human face forever. I say, imagine a human face entertained by a toilet forever.
Today we're going to talk about what melatonin is and why you should consider an alternative instead. Melatonin is a hormone made by the pineal gland in your brain. It's basically the messenger that announces bedtime to our brains. Darkness stimulates its release into the bloodstream while light inhibits it. Our bodies naturally produce endogenous melatonin. What you see on the store shelves is synthesized exogenous melatonin. In 2001, researchers at MIT concluded that the correct dosage of melatonin falls between 0.3 to 1 milligram. Yet, you can walk down any pharmacy aisle and you'll see stacks of sleep aids packing more than 10 times that amount. Dr. Richard Wertman, the MIT neuroscientist who discovered melatonin, was quoted as saying, "People should not self-medicate with melatonin."
The things that we have been seeing on our screens from Hamas are atrocities, obviously. But the media has said that these atrocities, they're really missing context. The context they are providing, well, that context is a bunch of lies.
How's it going?
There are 4 myths generally propagated by the left around the history of Israel and the Palestinians. These myths matter because they lead people into a peculiar moral relativism whereby attempted murder or successful murder of Jews is excused, and meanwhile, the evil human rights violations of the Palestinians are minimized. Myth number 1, Israel is historically Muslim territory. This is a pure and absolute lie. Israel is historically Jewish territory. According to the Bible and certain interpretations of contemporaneous archaeology, Joshua entered the land of Israel in 1400 BC. The Kingdom of David was founded around 1000 BC. The first Temple of Solomon was built in approximately 957 BC. The Second Temple was built in approximately 515 BC. The Hasmonean dynasty was founded in 166 BC. Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 BC, and the Jews exiled from Israel in 136 CE after the defeat of the Bar.
I'm gonna lose this battle. I don't know how to fight with the rats.
What?
With the rats.
What do you mean with the rats?
With the rats. The clan of rats. That in this game it's called Total Warhammer. I mean Total War Warhammer. Alright. Fuck that.
What
We're
does
going
it
this
say
way.
views?
Right there. Viewers. And then this is the YouTube. This is the kick. And then this is the chat on both.
So you're streaming on YouTube too right now?
What the fuck? Oh, there we go. Yeah, I'm streaming on Kick and YouTube.
Where's
On YouTube, I got a second channel called Skogan Dragon Live. Oh, man. Get this nigga right here. Alright. Here, you plug that in. What do you think about the Israel and Hamas?
Well, I already know what the guy that we're watching thinks about it.
The things that we have been seeing on our screens from Hamas are atrocities, obviously. But the media have said that these atrocities, they're really missing context. The context they are providing, well, that context is a bunch of lies. There are 4 myths generally propagated by the left around the history of Israel and the Palestinians. These myths matter because they lead people into a peculiar moral relativism whereby attempted murder or successful murder of Jews is excused, and meanwhile, the evil human rights violations of the Palestinians are minimized. Myth number 1. Israel is historically Muslim territory. This is a pure and absolute lie. Israel is historically Jewish territory. According to the Bible and certain interpretations of contemporaneous archaeology, Joshua entered the land of Israel in 1400 BC. The Kingdom of David was founded around 1000 BC. The first Temple of Solomon was built in approximately 957 BC. The second temple was built in approximately 515 BC. The Hasmonean dynasty was founded in 166 BC. Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 BC, and the Jews exiled from Israel in 136 CE after the defeat of the Bar Kokhba revolt. The Romans, in an attempt to shame the Jews, renamed the area Palestine as an insult after the Jews' historic enemy, the Philistines. Even during the exile, there was continuous Jewish presence in the land. Islam, which is the religion of the Palestinian Arabs, was not even founded until the 7th century CE or AD. No independent Arab state has ever existed in the area known as Palestine. Myth number 2. Israel is the cause of the failure of land partition in the Middle East. This is, again, a pure lie. In 1917, the British promised the Jews the entire area of Palestine. At the time, Israel and Transjordan, which is today's Jordan. In 1920, the Arabs began pogroms, a mass murder of Jews, in Jerusalem as a sign of anger at the British mandate in Palestine. In 1922, the British government, in response, announced in a white paper that the Transjordan area, 70% of Palestine, would be sliced off and made an Arab state. That would become Jordan. In 1937, the Peel Commission recommended a rump state for the Jews, in which the British would retain control over Jaffa and Jerusalem, the Arabs would get the entire Negev and nearly the entirety of Judea and Samaria, and the Jews would get a tiny swath of territory along the coast, including Tel Aviv and Haifa.
Okay. What happened?
I don't know. Oh, it's buffering. The internet's been such shit lately. It's been pissing me off.
Oh yeah, we had some people come here today that they were talking about spreading the word of
this
God.
Game.
So, I don't know, some like
You're not
Come
ready
where?
for it.
Your house?
our house. They just like
Were
drove
they
up. These people came.
The things that we've been seeing on our screens from Hamas are atrocities, obviously. But the media have said that these atrocities, they're really missing context. The context they are providing, well, that context is a bunch of lies. There are four
didn't
myths
know-
generally
I'm
propagated by the
assuming that
left
you're talking
around the
about,
history of Israel and the
not so
Palestinians.
bad
These myths matter
evidence.
because
What's it
they
called?
lead people into a peculiar moral relativism whereby attempted murder or successful murder of Jews is excused, and meanwhile, the evil human rights violations of the
Yeah, they can hear
Palestinians
the
are
video
minimized.
and then they can hear
Myth
the
number
link.
one.
And then
Israel
I
is
can turn-
historically Muslim territory. This is a pure and absolute lie. Israel is historically Jewish territory. According to the Bible and certain interpretations of contemporaneous archaeology, Joshua entered the land of Israel in 1400 BC. The Kingdom of David was founded around 1000 BC. The first Temple of Solomon was built in approximately 957
The thing
BC.
that sucks is anytime I click on a
The Second
different
Temple was built in approximately
screen
515 BC.
with Warhammer,
The Hasmonean Dynasty
it,
was founded in 166 BC. Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 BC, and the Jews exiled from Israel in 136 CE after the defeat of the Bar Kokhba revolt. The Romans, in an attempt to shame the Jews,
guys are
renamed the
fast, so I
area
can't even-
Palestine
whenever
as
I
an
try to
insult
attack
after
them,
the
I
Jews'
can't
historic
keep up.
enemy, the Philistines.
Yeah.
Even during the exile, there was continuous Jewish presence in the land. Islam, which is the religion of the Palestinian Arabs, was not even founded until the
can't
7th
get
century
horses with
CE
this,
or AD.
team.
No
With
independent
the Roman
Arab state
Empire,
has
well,
ever
the one
existed
that was
in the
like
area known as Palestine. Myth number two. Israel is the cause of the failure of land partition in the Middle East. This is, again, a pure lie. In 1917, the British promised the Jews the entire area of Palestine. At the time, Israel and Transjordan, which is today's Jordan. In 1920, the Arabs began pogroms, a mass murder of Jews, in Jerusalem as a sign of anger at the British mandate in Palestine. In 1922, the British government, in response, announced in a white paper that the Transjordan area, 70% of Palestine, would be sliced off and made an Arab state. That would become Jordan. In 1937, the Peel Commission recommended a rump state for the Jews, in which the British would retain control over Jaffa and Jerusalem, the Arabs would get the entire Negev and nearly the entirety of Judea and Samaria, and the Jews would get a tiny swath of territory along the coast, including Tel Aviv and Haifa. In 1939, the British, in response again to Arab pressure, restricted Jewish immigration to Palestine just as the Nazis began World War II and just before the Holocaust. Nonetheless, the Jews sided with the Brits, the Arabs sided with Hitler. In 1948, the British mandate ended and Israel declared its independence.
David Ben-Gurion read the Proclamation of Independence to 13 other members of the Israel Provisional National Council. Israel had taken its place among the nations of the world.
In 1964, with the Arabs still in full control of the Gaza Strip and West Bank, the Palestine Liberation Organization was founded, calling for the destruction of Israel. Here is a contemporaneous British report on the first chairman of the Palestine Liberation Organization.
One of the most extreme anti-Israeli politicians in the Arab world, Ahmed el-Shukeri, the leader of the Palestine Liberation Organization. As the spokesman for 1 million Palestine refugees, he's fanned the flames of hatred for Israel with unflagging energy.
In 1967, the Arab League announced the three no's: no peace, no recognition, no negotiations. With all of Israel's enemies mobilizing against it, Israel launched a preemptive strike on the Egyptian Air Force, inaugurating the 1967 Six-Day War. This ended with Israel gaining miraculously the Sinai Desert, the Golan Heights, the Gaza Strip, Judea and Samaria, now known as the West Bank, as well as the entirety of Jerusalem. In 1973, the Arabs launched all-out war again, this time on Yom Kippur. Israel survived and gained territory. In 1979, Israel gave the Sinai back to Egypt in return for peace. In 1993, Israel agreed to the Oslo Accords, which promised a step-by-step process to establish a Palestinian state. In 1998, Israel conceded yet more territory to the Palestinian Authority under the prime ministership of Benjamin Netanyahu. In 2000, Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak offered Yasser Arafat, the terrorist leader of the Palestinian Authority, 91% control over the West Bank in contiguous territory and an Israeli security presence along 15% of the border with Jordan. Arafat walked away from the table and began the Second Intifada, a massive terror wave that ended with the death of thousands of Jews. In 2005, Israel unilaterally withdrew from the Gaza Strip. Hamas immediately took it over and began using it as a base for terrorist activity. That continues until this day. In 2008, Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert offered even more than Barak in terms of territory, with some land swaps to maintain Jewish-populated areas in exchange for some Israeli territory. Olmert even offered to relinquish Israeli sovereignty at the Temple Mount, the holiest site in Judaism, as well as the entire Old City of Jerusalem to a 5-member, non-sovereign international trusteeship comprising Israel, the PA, Jordan, the US, and Saudi Arabia. PA head Mahmoud Abbas walked away without a counteroffer.
When you have these woke revolutions, it requires all of us at some point to say, no, I'm not going to do this.
Myth number 3. Israel expelled all Palestinian Arabs from British Mandate Palestine.
I'm smart, obviously.
This is, again, a lie. Israel's founding documents
Sucks right now. I have no idea.
asked Arabs to stay. Israel's Declaration of Independence in the middle
What to do.
of an ongoing war with Arab nations reads, quote, "We appeal, in the very midst of the onslaught launched against us now for months, to the Arab inhabitants of the State of Israel to preserve peace and participate in the upbuilding of the state on the basis of full and equal citizenship and due representation in all its provisional and permanent institutions." Debate has raged for decades over how many Arabs left the nascent state of Israel thanks to expulsion, and how many left because they were told to leave by their own leaders. An estimated 250,000 to 300,000 refugees left before their homes were even in a war zone.
We didn't compel them to leave. They left on their own will, or rather on the will of Arab leaders, who advised them even before trouble started.
The collapse of Arab society during the 1947-48 war, leaving many Arabs without a means of support, has been well documented.
Israel will do everything in its power to help the resettlement of these refugees by paying compensation and by other means.
Hundreds of thousands of these refugees ended up in the West Bank and Gaza, which remained Arab territory until 1967. Furthermore, Arab nations refused to take in hundreds of thousands of Arabs, turning their co-religionists into refugees who have maintained that status for literally decades, a situation unparalleled in human history. Fully 62% of such refugees live outside the West Bank and Gaza Strip, according to the UNRWA. Meanwhile, Israel, tiny Israel, took in over 800,000 Jews expelled from Arab.
So, why would they do that? Okay, so while that's buffering, you want to know a cool thing that can counteract inflation? So, one thing is if you already have a bunch like
Arab land between 1948 and 1951.
If you stop if you somehow, how do I say this? So if you become more of like a tourist country, you know, and bring in a lot of people into that country, there will be a need for money, which will therefore raise the value of that currency, which is pretty cool. Instead of like just creating money, like printing it, which would lower it, and therefore less people would want to be there, because having a less valuable thing that you trade for, why would you want to do that? Having to carry that much money in your pocket? No. So then that just leads a cycle. So if you become a country that's based on a lot of tourism, then a lot of people will come and then get stuff, you know. But since there'll be enough people to the point where people will want and need more money to buy other things, money value will become higher, and then there. And you know how a lot of people need jobs, because now once that happens, you need money, more jobs, which is a sucky thing. But bigger industry, which I don't know. I think in Cloudy of a Chance of Meatballs, the one mayor guy says bigger is better, so there you go. That's a good thing. Even though that guy looks like he has his own orbit. Still is buffering. Is there anything else we can do? Man, my brother has like 0 games.
And never asked for land to be returned to those Jews. Myth number 4. Israel is an apartheid state. Israel is most certainly not an apartheid state. Arab citizens of Israel have the same rights as Jewish citizens. 20% of all citizens of Israel are Arab. The vast majority of Palestinians live under Palestinian rule in the West Bank. All Arabs in the Gaza Strip lived under Hamas rule. Israel's population, again, is 20% Arab. Arab parties have sat in the Israeli government. An Arab sits on Israel's Supreme Court. There are 0 Jews living under Palestinian rule. The only apartheid state is any state of Palestine. All of these myths have consequences. All of these lies have consequences. They lead to a pseudo-sophisticated context that allows for the murder of Jews. It allows people in the West to believe that the grievances that are openly articulated by the Palestinian Authority, Islamic Jihad, and Hamas are actually about territory. Hamas openly calls for the murder of every Jew in the region. The Palestinian Authority gives actual bounties to the families of terrorists. Islamic Jihad has the same exact goals as Hamas. When evil people say they want to wipe Jews off the face of the earth, we ought to listen, not make up silly excuses as to why they don't actually mean what they say. The consequences of buying your own lies, not even their lies, your own lies, is dead Jews. The world has witnessed the heinous attack by Hamas terrorists against innocent Israeli citizens. This massive and devastating attack killed over 1,000 Israeli men, women, children, babies. Thousands more were injured, kidnapped, held hostage. This sworn enemy of Israel will stop at nothing to slaughter every single Jew and claim Israel as their own. But there is a beacon of hope.
About how to counteract inflation while that was loading. Oh yeah, I lost the game. I did indeed lose the game. And now I was talking about how it's truly the most racist thing to bring up something that happened a long time ago and still try and be like, yeah, so that's why everybody's terrible. How dare you? Because he was bringing up World War II in this, and I was like, well,
I mean, there's people who
completely different people, though.
I mean, there's people who are still alive, probably.
Yeah, couple people. So yeah, I absolutely got destroyed. I don't know how to play this game.
Was there another fight?
I don't know. It just said defeat. You lost. We should play Risk. I'm better at Risk. How do I see the one thing on the camera? How do you do that?
Like this. Right here. And then it's OBS Studio.
Oh.
Yep.
How do I swap it over to
You go to scenes, and then I have them numbered. See? So then number 1 is this one.
Oh, right.
And screen. And then number 2 is this one in screen.
Oh, wow.
And then camera is that.
Camera?
Oh, I forgot about it. Well, I was also carrying the...
Oh, that's why you put this couch.
Yeah.
Nice. I guess maybe I saw this last time.
Oh.
So.
Nice. I remember this. You had this in the other house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we're gonna play Risk instead. Risk, it seems
We
fun.
have a lot more room here. Don't you?
Yeah.
Nice.
Jace, you don't have any other games?
No.
Bad. You have Risk, and that's it.
No.
Besides.
Oh yeah, I uninstalled all my other games.
Why?
You like all
Because I
the
didn't
stuff
want 'em.
fun that you ordered?
Okay.
It's boring.
We're gonna play
What?
Risk.
Do you like everything you got that you
Yeah.
ordered? Good.
Oh, is that for your
Streaming.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Looks kind of professional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fancy.
Uh-huh.
So do you do sign language on there?
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just
Okay, so you're gonna watch this,
I remember
I was
three.
doing it so I could spell out stuff, but it's hard to figure it out. You gotta learn it so that you can do it real fast.
I remember
Practice every day.
Phrases.
Okay. I understand now. Now, how do I go to the video? Where's the video?
It's on this one.
This one?
No, this one.
Did you guys not uninstall it?
Okay.
Amidst the chaos, the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews is on the ground right now, providing critical essentials like food, medicine, and other emergency supplies for
Solo, ranked, casual, still buffers.
vulnerable Jews who need immediate help. But the need is massive and urgent. This great organization needs your help right now. To donate, please go to benforthefellowship.org. Give as generously as you can. Write it down. That's benforthefellowship.org. Thank you.
Can we go against AI?
You can. It's right there.
If you live in Montana, you could lower your electric bill to less than $30 a month. How? First,
Say, for the sake of argument, there's this guy.
Okay, so solo battle. Jace, what should I listen to? Actually, Jace, you know what? I'm gonna talk about my political views.
No.
Yeah, that'd be hilarious.
Okay, we're gonna go. Give me a hug.
Where's the meat at? I didn't see it in there.
Oh, it's up on the counter.
Oh, okay. I'll bring it down.
Okay, I'll be back.
Where's my hug? You didn't give me one.
Are you sleeping down here tonight?
I guess I might.
Alright. Love you, buddy.
Bye.
Love you.
Bye, Mom. Love you. Okay, I have the better ones now. Oh man. Okay. That's a good comment. Thanks for leaving that. Choose map. Classic, yeah.
Did you hear me cuss?
Okay. Oh, you cussed?
Well, they asked if I dropped it.
Oh. Dude, can you turn, how do you turn this up and down?
What up?
The volume on this.
On what?
On the, oh. Is that how high it goes?
Yeah. And then you can go to that and turn that up. Or you can turn it up from clicking out of there. And
oh. Just don't mind that. Okay. How do I go down?
no, don't do that.
I'm trying
That's
to get
not-
rid of it.
Okay, there we go.
How do I go
I wonder
down?
if you can see the... Alright, switch me.
Oh man, I'm playing Risk.
No, I'm gonna play Risk. I like playing against people.
Oh man.
Oh, I only have 25 credits right now?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, you're
Usually they
broke,
replenish to
Jace.
45 and 20. Oh, I guess I didn't stop streaming last night until like... Here. We're gonna
Yeah, Jace,
continue with...
look, I person commented for me, okay?
No, that was mine.
Cap.
We're gonna continue this for a second.
This just
I hate
real
how with
abomination,
Risk, I can
total
go
scum
click-
What?
With Risk, I can
sucking
click-
garbage hole. Who's running for president? And conservative
fuck
politicians,
you.
pundits, and
He's
voters
a
have
good
been.
person. Oh no! Now I'm getting attacked from this end too.
Who is this guy?
I don't know, some lib, some commie.
Say, for the sake of argument, there's this guy.
Okay,
This
let's
just
switch over a little bit. There
Let
we
me
go.
find something really base.
real abomination, total scum sucking garbage hole. Who's running for president? And conservative politicians, pundits, and voters have been laughing their asses off about him. Oh my god, he is such a disaster. He'll never get the nomination, and if he were to get the nomination, no one would ever elect him. They trot him out as a punchline. But November 8 draws nearer and nearer, and he's still not out of the game. And the left is banging on the walls like, hey, that joke you're giving free press to is saying some pretty scary stuff. And the right is like, look, don't waste your breath. We've already accepted that we lost this one. We're certainly not going to bat for this guy, so he's gonna lose. And then at the last second, when they do go to bat for him, and he does win, and the left is like, what the absolute heck, my dudes? They go, can't do anything about it now.
He's like, what's his name? But
He's the president. And when, 4 years later, you finally get his ass out of office, the left turns to the right and says, okay, now that he's not president, are you going to acknowledge all the stuff he did? You know, the stuff he said he was going to do, that we warned you he was going to do, and you said we were delusional for thinking he would do, that he did? And they're like, oh my God, Heather, he's not even president anymore? How are you still talking about this? I call this one the slow breakup. It's like when your partner starts canceling date nights and then starts getting home really late and then starts sleeping on the couch, and you keep asking, hey, is there something wrong? And they just say, oh, sweetie, of course not. Work is just running me ragged lately, and when I have time off, I'm too tired to go out, and I get home so late these days, I don't want to wake you up by coming to bed. And then one day you get home and their bags are packed, and they're like, look, we both saw this coming. You know that thing. You know this happens to everybody, right? It's always not happening until it's already happened. The moment is skipped over where they would acknowledge they misled you, take responsibility for what's happened, or critically, where you could still do something about it. You peel your eyes for this one, you'll see it a lot. This is how conservatives jumped straight from climate change isn't happening to climate change isn't man-made. And now some are trying to jump to maybe it's a good thing. Rhetorically, all these arguments mean the same thing. We decided long ago what we were going to do. Nothing you say will change our course. This conversation is over.
This guy's not cool at all. The video got over.
Well, you could keep switching chairs.
Because it's way nicer.
Did you pause it?
No, it just got. Yeah, I paused it.
Well, it just runs on. I selected a whole playlist of videos that I wanted to watch on my phone. So. Yeah. I like to watch Left Wing. Yeah. I hate how.
Jace? Are they able
Say for the sake of argument, you're 12 or 13, it's the mid-90s, and you're sitting across the table from your conservative aunt at a family reunion. This aunt will, a decade from now, become a tea partier. And you have, you sweet, innocent child, brought up the subject of evolution, being too young to know it's politicized. And your aunt has not taken well to it. She goes on one of her classic tirades, dismissing the very concept of evolution as patently ridiculous, dropping a quote that will stick with you for ages. You can't get snakes from chicken eggs. And you do your best to explain with your limited knowledge base that, yeah, you can only get a snake from a snake egg, but that snake is going to be a little different from its parents, and the next snake will be a little different from its parents, and you multiply that by a few million generations, and you might have something very different from that original snake. Maybe something with legs, or that can breathe underwater, or see better in the dark. And your aunt stares you dead in the eye and repeats, as if you hadn't said anything, you can't get snakes from chicken eggs. So this is an ego-saving maneuver in which a complex truth is rejected in favor of simplicity. Your aunt has a statement which is true, though non sequitur to the argument at hand. And after your explanation of how genetics work on long timelines, she repeats her original statement to herself, and it still feels true. It's the belief that the truth is easily recognized, and that it's always simple, because the world is simple, and if you can't explain it to me like I'm 5, then you're probably wrong or making things up. This heuristic is very hard to argue with. Like, you've heard the same aunt claim that the hole in the ozone layer is caused by sunspots. Now, we've talked about the mimetic power of statements that are short, quippy, and wrong, and this is a fine example. You might feel the correct response is a statement that is short, quippy, and correct. But here's the conundrum. The truth is, the hole in the ozone layer is caused by chlorofluorocarbons. Not only is that a more complex sentence, it's a more complex idea. If the ozone hole is caused by sunspots, then it's probably been happening for billions of years. It's not caused by humans, and we don't have to do anything about it. It's reassuring, and tells folks all they need to know without further questions. But the truth of how aerosols deplete ozone is more complex, not least because even without knowing the science of it, it implies there's a problem we should do something about. Ultraviolet light makes CFCs release chlorine into the stratosphere where it bonds with ozone, converting it into oxygen and chlorine monoxide, neither of which do what ozone does to protect us from the sun. There may be people who can explain that more simply than I just did, but there is a floor to how simple the truth can be and still be the truth. Falsehoods don't...
This week when our football thing ended, we were making, me and Trust...
Then you're probably wrong or making things up. This heuristic is very hard to argue with. Like, you've heard the same ant claim that the hole in the ozone layer is caused by sunspots. Now, we've talked about the mimetic power of statements that are short, quippy, and wrong, and this is a fine example. You might feel the correct response is a statement that is short, quippy, and correct. But here's the conundrum. The truth is, the hole in the ozone layer is caused by chlorofluorocarbons. Not only is that a more complex sentence, it's a more complex idea. If the ozone hole is caused by sunspots, then it's probably been happening for billions of years. It's not caused by humans, and we don't have to do anything about it. It's reassuring, and tells folks all they need to know without further questions. But the truth of how aerosols deplete ozone is more complex, not least because even without knowing the science of it, it implies there's a problem we should do something about. Ultraviolet light makes CFCs release chlorine into the stratosphere where it bonds with ozone, converting it into oxygen and chlorine monoxide, neither of which do what ozone does to protect us from the sun. There may be people who can explain that more simply than I just did, but there is a floor to how simple the truth can be and still be the truth. Falsehoods don't have that. There is no limit to how simple an idea can be when it doesn't have to conform to reality. You play the game of who's got the simplest argument, liars win every time. You can't get much simpler than sunspots. But if you can convince people that the world is complex, then simplistic explanations across the board become suspect. It might be too late to do that with your aunt, but maybe there's still hope for your cousins. If you're wondering what they do when confronted with something they cannot deny is complicated, well, you did that. You or someone like you took their simple world and overcomplicated it. All the conspiracy theories and finger-pointing and screenshots they've squiggled MS Paint over, all of that is the story of how you overcomplicated the world. It fills in the gap between the simplicity of the world they believe in and the unambiguous complexity of the one in which we live. And yes, that story is at least as complex as the truth you're trying to tell them. And no, it doesn't make any sense. But that's a detail. Because the moral of...
Alright.
What they can see... What are they...
JJ's texting me that she can't hear us over the video.
Tell them, and no, it doesn't make any sense. But that's a detail. Because the moral of that story is incredibly simple. It is this way because some people made it this way, and all the right has to do is take the power back from those people and things will be simple again. This is their version of A Wizard Did It.
That's not what really strawmanned that whole argument. Matt Walsh is obsessed with gay babies.
Who's obsessed with gay babies?
That's what the majority.
Here's Matt Walsh with his theory on
the majority report is so fucking stupid.
Whether homosexuality is learned or if it's intrinsic in yourself. feels like this debate is like stuck in a 2005 time capsule, but Matt Walsh is stuck in 1902, so that
win a lot of things.
There.
That's against people. People rats win a lot. There's so many. So we're supposed to be like the smartest.
That makes a little bit more sense for his standards. We're in a more modern conversation, but the conclusions that he draws are
there's so many
similarly hateful. I guess in keeping with what he normally, the conclusions he draws, hateful once again.
There we go.
Absolutely
Let's play
strive,
Risk.
because once you reach a certain
I might
level,
have to change my. I might have to change the name of the stream to playing Risk now instead of playing War.
From the other side, well, there is no argument really. I mean, these people are just shameless, soulless, hypocritical con artists who will say whatever they need to say in any given situation. So you can't really use their own arguments against them, as I've just done, because their arguments are not real arguments. Nothing they say means anything. But to the extent that we can use a word like argument,
you should get a podcast.
Bro, you know that it would take way more for me to get a podcast than to stream, and I would want to co-host a single-person podcast. Would be so hard.
Jace,
I guess this is kind of doing a single-person podcast, but not really.
I know a great co-host.
You?
Yeah.
No.
Obviously.
No. I don't think Mom and Dad would be happy with that. Damn, bro, this is so...
Actually, Mom and Dad said that I should just absolutely...
the argument from the other side is that sexual orientation is immutable and unchangeable. We already talked about this yesterday.
All right, which one am I? All right, I'm green.
And first of all, there was never any reason to believe that.
Oh, dude, you have
this idea that
I know, I have like
born
the
gay
worst
or whatever.
setup here.
We know that a person's sexual preferences and tastes
it's so hard to take
can absolutely be affected by all manner of things. Trauma, abuse,
you want to have
exposure to pornography from a young age. Many things can impact a person's sexual preferences.
Can we
This
just
is not
stop
really-
with that little insinuation there? So if you are basically gay or trans, it's because you've been abused or exposed to pornography, which is absolutely absurd. And what's interesting is like the sexuality parts of it that comes later. Like look, like in my glance of the literature, like 9 or 10. But like as far as like trans identity, like, and I feel like a girl or I feel like a boy, that often happens much younger, like 5, 6 ish, like Dwayne Wade's kid, famously. So that little insinuation there, like we're not really.
Well, can you reckon with the Catholic Church? Because I don't think that Matt Walsh wants to. He never talks about the Catholic Church's documented history of sexual abuse. But like, if he wants to make a claim that that being homosexual is somehow a result of that. It's been pretty clear, like, what institution is most synonymous with the purveyors of that in modern thought. But anyway, but it's all stupid. And his claim of that the left thinks that sexuality is immutable and unchangeable is a complete straw man as well. Like, of course, someone's sexual identity is a very personal thing. And once we begin to remove layers of stigma that Matt Walsh is like desperately trying to put back on,
and like edicts and dogma.
Yeah, then people are more open to exploring and seeing how they feel.
Like,
maybe I want to date a woman. Maybe I want to date a trans man or something. And that is the society that we want to create, so that you can figure it out yourself. But I would never say that somebody's writ large sexuality is immutable and unchangeable from birth, because it's entirely personal and context matters for everything. So he has to straw man the left's position on this in order to make some point. Either way, it's dumb, but here we go.
Affected by all manner of things: trauma, abuse, exposure to pornography.
Okay, sorry. Actually, pause again. It can be affected by all manner of things, but notice how when he's talking about homosexuality, he only uses negative, negative things to say how that can affect.
They have ADHD.
Oh, like people who don't
treat them like how they are super special.
You're saying like people who probably don't actually have ADHD that their parents
have any mental
like
issues.
force. Yeah. I get
but
what
their
you're saying.
parents overreact to everything to the point where they're just like.
Yeah. At first I thought they were talking about people who actually have issues, like who are actually like mentally disabled, and I was like, yeah, they should.
No, I'm
but I
talking
get what
about,
you're
like,
saying now.
Because like I know a couple kids who just don't have any like actual
Yeah.
problems with them, but they'll just scream out in school and have to take like walks and just get out of
Yeah.
school for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Except
Writ
for-
large, sexuality is immutable and unchangeable from birth because it's entirely personal and context matters for
it's just
everything.
like-
So, he has to straw man the left's position on this in order to make some point.
Setup, I know.
Either way, it's dumb, but here we go.
Over
I don't know
there,
why I
all
did.
manner of
I
things.
unaccidentally-
Trauma, abuse,
you have the worst position.
exposure to pornography.
Okay, sorry.
from a young age.
Actually, pause it again. It can be
Asia.
affected by all manner of things,
I
but
know, I'm
notice
gonna
how
try
when
to
he's
come
talking about
down and go
homosexuality,
get,
he only like
and go
uses negative
Australia.
negative things to say how that can affect you. So there's a natural state of being, and that's heterosexual, and that washes eyes.
Yes,
and
there
the
is a
only way that you can
natural being,
divert
and
from
that
the
is
that path
heterosexual,
is if you're
because
a
we are
victim
designed
of trauma, right?
to
Because then that's
reproduce.
unnatural.
So obviously, heterosexual is going to be the natural design.
We're not cells. We're not cells.
Oh, we
We're
are
not-
cells.
We're not just like, I'm gonna make out with myself.
And taste
Oh, now
can
it's
absolutely be
Oh, you're
affected
talking-
by
we're
all
not-
manner of things.
we
Trauma,
don't,
abuse,
we're not like
exposure to
asexual
pornography from a young age.
reproducers, is what
Many
you're saying?
things can impact a person's sexual preferences. I mean, this is not really disputed by any serious person. There is no gay gene, no matter how hard they look for one. And the idea that people are born gay has always been incoherent because, you know, if people are born gay, like born gay, you're gay from birth,
Talk about this.
right? That's what that would mean.
So this is the
And then that means that there are what, homosexual
Matt Walsh works
infants
for the Daily Wire.
out
This
there?
is
Again, no sane person thinks that.
About to put my
So there's
siren
no
on.
reason why a person can't seek and receive successful counseling to overcome same-sex attraction.
Oh my God, conversion therapy. I guess that's what Matt was doing when he wanted to lower the age of consent and said that, 16-year-old girls should be, basically I'm paraphrasing, but available to have sex with older men because he wanted to, as not a predator at all, he would never be one, do the deconversion and
there is
making
states
sure
where that actually is
they
the
didn't
thing.
get, access to certain materials that would turn them into the evil monster homosexual.
Look at all these straight babies.
Are babies born straight then?
Yeah.
So, but if it's only
Oh,
natural
why do
to
I
be
keep
straight,
doing
and then
this?
trauma's what takes you on this other path,
Yeah.
then every baby's straight. But it's ridiculous that there's a homosexual baby.
Do you know that about 10% of rams refuse to mate with
Actually,
ewes, which are the female sheep, but do readily mate with other rams? And I wonder who showed those rams sheep pornography.
Yeah, he should probably look up homosexuality in the animal kingdom. That is.
What are their gay babies?
Yeah.
Let me look into that.
There are animals that engage in sexual acts
Freak.
Yeah, just
with
because-
same
That's 'cause
with
they're
their same
stupid.
sex.
All right, that's right now they're
comparing us to animals.
yeah, that's actually a fallacy. It's called the appeal to nature fallacy.
Like I am not like okay, so just
and
because,
Are you
animal
gonna
shits
compartmentalize
on itself,
that,
I'm
but,
not going to. I'm not
it
gonna
also
do that
goes to
myself.
show
how bunnies
how
eat their babies. It's
Yeah.
not doesn't mean
you
that
can
it's
see how
moral
the
to eat your
conservatives
babies.
can't
Because
conceive
some
of anybody's
rabid creature that has no
attraction
understanding of
to
Jesus can-
someone that they love in
Has no
any way that
morality.
isn't
Yeah.
directly connected with
Okay.
just sex.
The thing is,
Straight
I
up
hear so
sex
many
right
bad
there.
things about
Like
sharks, though.
because when you talk
About
to
sharks?
Yeah, but, like, okay, yeah.
people who are gay,
It's like that happens because
they'll. I mean, I've
but like you would not believe how many
I don't know
things
why I'm
happen
telling the
about
story, but my
dolphins.
uncle
talking
passed away
about
from AIDS
dolphins.
before I
Yeah.
was born,
Dolphins
and
are-
Dolphins are
my
terrible.
mom tells a story about how
They
like she
help-
asked him
they've drowned
because it was not
children in
kosher at that time.
they
He was
be-
having
they be
trouble
raping
coming out to the
dolphins,
family.
too.
Yeah.
But he was passing away and it was
Yeah,
becoming obvious.
dolphins
And she asked him like, when did you?
So people tried to teach a dolphin how to speak English, but since the dolphin could only
Yeah,
speak
and then-
through its nose, But since it was like a teenager and it was
Are you
really
talking about
horny,
the scientist who fell in love with a
the
dolphin?
scientist that had a
relationship with the
a
dolphin. Yeah, I do know about that story.
Yeah,
and it was funded by the CIA.
I
By
know,
like
'cause
the
they wanted-
or it was either the CIA or FBI. It was one of
they
them.
were getting
I think it was
close
the
enough 'cause
CIA.
The thing could understand some words, but it was super hard
Yeah.
because of that. But at the beginning,
But they do
were-
say that dolphins' brains are are closest to ours out of any
which is pretty
other.
fucked up.
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
To think about that thing is the closest to us. And the other one is a monkey, which throws poop. So,
Throws poop. I mean, there's
That's pretty
humans who throw poop.
yeah. So,
Alright. And now.
but what happened at the beginning of that project was they'd have to move it into a room full of female dolphins for every time, but that kept getting so long that they just chose, hey, can you do that? And this lady was just volunteering, and she was like, oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So that
I
lady
do
must
know
have
about
had
this
some
story.
screw loose.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
You know, and he was like, when I was 5 years old. I was 5 years old. And I saw X movie star on TV. And that's very common when you talk to people. Not when they're babies. They don't come out and say like, "Oh, I'm gay now." But when they start to have an understanding of gender and they consume culture and watch a movie and they might find someone handsome or pretty, that's
Basically,
when it starts to click.
Yeah, they aren't confined to a repressive culture that excludes any sort of thing like that from the sort of realm of ideas.
Right, and so it's so silly, and those 5-year-olds who are having that attraction to a man or a woman that's of their same gender on TV, they're not thinking about sex, but they are beginning to develop their
I think
attraction
a lot of
and understanding of that.
Yeah, and exactly, and I say like the things that I cursorily looked
sexualization of
over.
our TV
There's like this
has
is like the
made it
first
so
like
that-
we're learning how to even ask kids about this.
That
But like
happens.
anybody, I mean, I was obsessed with Catwoman from the Batman
Yeah.
movies when I was like 5 or 6, and I didn't even know what sex
You didn't
was.
even know why though.
It was
right?
like my imagination is we're gonna roll around in these bed sheets, and that's gonna be like really great. I didn't know what sex was. I didn't know anything,
Yeah.
but it's like I was
I was,
obsessed with.
Like target practicing with a bow,
Yeah. When?
a compound bow.
Just
earlier
recently?
today.
Oh, nice.
So,
Man, I'm
ooh,
gonna
red and
lose.
black are taking over. You're doing pretty good too, but
Well, no. Look at how many people I have in my places, though. There's not. And this guy's about to take.
yeah, but like, oh, now that they cut you off, you're basically done for because like they had
Yeah. I might quit and do a
Yeah.
different game. Although I only have like one more game left of tokens. Yeah, I only have one more game left of tokens.
that sucks, but like, so.
So
you
I don't
know
like.
how we just
Oh.
got new cats?
Yeah.
Piggies? So we had Stella this morning. When I
Stella.
was
Who's Stella?
the black and white one.
Oh, I thought that you named that one Chill. Did you change
We
its
redid-
name?
Yeah.
Oh.
So that one, when I was shooting, it just like rub up on me and keep going on the thing.
Yeah.
So it was basically just my hunting partner, I guess.
It was
for a
your
while.
hunting partner?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Catwoman.
yeah, but I can
Understood.
Can we watch a little bit from what we watched, where Walsh
Sure.
talks a little bit more about
Oh,
his
man.
thoughts on conversion
I'm
therapy?
still in
Sure,
a
go
bad
ahead.
position here.
You're green again?
Yeah, I guess I could take
Right there, yeah.
Europe. But Europe
is
is
trying to
kind
give
of like a
electric
really
shocks or even
contested area
drugs.
with so
Okay,
many openings.
in almost
It's
every
hard to
case,
take
when we hear
Europe
about
and keep it
so-called
at the
conversion
beginning.
therapy, it is a case where somebody with a same-sex attraction goes to a therapist or to a counselor to help them overcome that
Well,
attraction.
It's good
Like
because
they're looking
it can,
for
you can
counseling
save it for a really long
for
time, and then
therapy
you'll
to help them
always gain.
overcome this attraction that is troubling them
once you get
and that they don't
content
want.
control, 'cause that's
They don't, you know, they don't want to have the
I
same-sex
agree with
attraction, but they do, and they're looking for help. And why shouldn't people have the right to seek that kind of help if they want it? To use language that the left is familiar with, if somebody desires to be straight, then why shouldn't we affirm that desire?
We literally
Why
do.
shouldn't they receive affirmative care in that context? I mean,
What are
that's
you
their lived
talking about?
experience, right? That's
All right, it's just
The real trans people are people that were torturing to not be gay.
Yeah,
right.
So Matt Walsh is basically asking the question: why isn't there sexuality affirming care for
Yeah.
repressed gay people?
No. He needs to be affirmed constantly. Matt Walsh needs his sexuality to be affirmed. It doesn't. It's not enough for him, and that says a lot about him. It's not enough for him that culture does it on this daily effing basis, and that all religious institutions try to funnel people into the nuclear family with a man and a woman. It's not enough that that society basically makes it the most desirable from like a tax perspective, from a social acceptance perspective, to be, unfortunately, in that kind of heteronormative married relationship. Matt Walsh, for some reason, he needs more than that. His grip on his sexuality is so tenuous that, he needs a seminar every month about how to wear a flannel shirt and how to make sure that the accoutrement in my studio is as brown and bland as possible because colors are gay. Just little tips like that for him that he needs to affirm his sexuality.
I don't actually even call it conversion therapy. It's twice a week I go to what I call the sex chiropractor. He straightens me right out.
Bye-bye thoughts. Bye-bye thoughts.
I'm not even thinking about nothing like that anymore.
What are you talking about, bro?
I haven't thought about gay babies for 5 days.
Now off to the middle school.
Off on false pretenses to go talk at a school board meeting.
Matt Gaetz doesn't regret ousting McCarthy. I don't. It's about to get us Jim Jordan as
Join the millions of
the
players
Speaker of the
already
House.
on Roll20, the world's largest and
The House finally get a speaker so that it can get back to work. Friday, Ohio GOP Congressman Jim Jordan was nominated to be Speaker after garnering support from both deposed Speaker Kevin McCarthy and from Fox anchor Sean Hannity. Without a leader, the GOP has frozen the chamber during several looming crises, from Israel's war against Hamas
I don't like Logan
to
Paul,
a potential
but they are
government
good,
shutdown now just 34 days away. It's unclear if Jordan can win enough support from the entire House to get the requisite 217 votes. In a secret ballot on Friday, he still had 55 Republicans opposed. Joining me now is the person who started this whole chain of events by pushing for McCarthy's ouster, Florida Representative Matt Gaetz. Congressman, do you regret ousting Kevin McCarthy, given that Israel is now at war with Hamas and we don't have a speaker?
What are you doing?
Absolutely not. The United States stands with Israel. Israel has a right to defend itself, and there is no need expressed by Israel that the United States has not been able to meet. That's because we have Israel essentially on auto pay. As a consequence of legislation that was passed by Senator Marco Rubio of Florida, the administration is pre-authorized to meet any need that Israel could possibly express in this particular phase of the crisis. My expectation is that we will elect Speaker-designate Jim Jordan as House Speaker next week, and
That'd
we'll
be sweet if we got Jim Jordan as the Speaker of the House.
Just, is your PlayStation even able to play any games anymore?
Yeah, I cleaned it.
You cleaned it?
Uh-huh.
You know, it'd be cool if you were able to hook up your PlayStation to.
I think I gotta get a capture card for that.
Yeah.
And attack phase.
How do I turn on the TV?
I don't have any of that plugged in. That's what that's for. So I can get plug that is for. So I can plug everything in.
Forward with resolutions of support, but those are non-binding expressions of our opinion when it comes to the movement of specific materiel and the coordination on intelligence. We are pre-authorized because our relationship with Israel is that unique.
How do you think that Jordan crosses the finish line with 217 if there were 55 votes against him, as is being reported? You were there. 55 votes against him on that second ballot last night.
Except for him,
I think it's important to understand how
I was going to wait
math
for him
moved.
to try to
Initially, there were
man, he's
81
going to come
votes
and try to
against
get
Jim
me
Jordan,
with the 16.
and then about 30 minutes later, there were only 55 votes against Jim Jordan. So on that trajectory, he seems to be gaining a good amount of momentum. Also, it's important to note that those 55 no votes on Jordan were on a secret anonymous ballot, like in the basement of the Longworth office building. It's quite a different thing to stand on the floor of the House of Representatives. next week, and we'll be prepared to move forward with resolutions of support, but those are non-binding expressions of our opinion when it comes to the movement of specific materiel and the coordination on intelligence. We are pre-authorized because our relationship with Israel is that unique.
How do you think that Jordan crosses the finish line with 217 if there were 55 votes against him, as is being reported? You were there. 55 votes against him on that second ballot last night.
Well, I think it's important to understand how that math moved. Initially, there were 81 votes against Jim Jordan, and then about 30 minutes later, there were only 55 votes against Jim Jordan.
Yeah.
So on that trajectory, he seems to be gaining a good amount of momentum. Also, it's important to note that those 55 no votes on Jordan were on a secret anonymous ballot, like in the basement of the Longworth office building. It's quite a different thing to stand on the floor of the House of Representatives
You can't really
and
right
vote
now, there's
against
no one watching.
the second most popular living Republican in America. I know how hard it is to stand on the floor and vote against the party's choice. I did it to extract concessions that I thought were meaningful that unfortunately the former speaker did not
Did you
live
put
up to.
that
But my
video that you sent me on
expectation is that next week
The
we will
video with
elect
the
Jim
Lego
Jordan.
people
Frankly,
that you
Michael,
sent me,
I think
did
we
you put that
probably
on
could
there?
have done it last night, and I would have preferred that path. But Speaker Emeritus McCarthy said that he wanted Jim Jordan's family to be able to be there, his supporters to be able to be there. And I guess one thing that Kevin McCarthy and I agree on, Jim Jordan's going to be the next Speaker of the House.
You've heard the criticisms, right, from people, including in your own caucus. I think one member who said that it's a group of idiots who have led us down this path. Others say we look
it's
third
not.
worldish
I think
at
that
a
they
time
did
when
a
we need
great
to be
move.
looking as a model for democracies around the globe. How do you respond to those who say that the whole perception of the United States and the dysfunction of Congress is what has arisen out of your ouster of Kevin McCarthy?
I find it a little ridiculous, right? Like, oh no, the world is ending because the House of Representatives isn't passing ceremonial resolutions this week. The entire United States Senate was out all week. The House of Representatives takes 7 weeks off
It's
every
impossible
single year
for
for
them to
essentially a
ban
summer
TikTok.
vacation. There are days when all we vote on are procedural votes
you
in
can.
post offices.
You can
So
download it
I
on the
think
App
that
Store.
the chaos narrative is a bit overplayed, particularly in the Beltway, because the lobbyists and the special interests want someone in the speakership that they totally control. They had that in Kevin McCarthy, and just because lobbyists and special interests have been disempowered by the motion to vacate doesn't mean it was the wrong decision, and it doesn't mean that like we're in chaos because there were 10 days when the lights were off on the House floor. We have not put our pencils down.
no,
This
he's
last
gonna-
week we were getting classified briefings on the evolving situation in the Middle East. I was taking depositions.
Form of our government should tell us what we can or can't do.
Yeah.
Besides, like, something that could actually, like, harm.
Like someone else, yeah.
bunch of people,
So you're talking about a
So, like,
libertarian view.
You can do your own stupid stuff, and that's your fault, right?
Yeah, you're talking about a
Instead of-
libertarian view on.
Yeah, instead of the government being like, well, actually, we're just trying to be salty at China because.
Well, I mean, China is using it to spy on us and
Yeah.
degenerate our culture, which sucks, but
But, like, they're still going to do that anyways.
yeah.
It's not like. Because people
They're
are
also
still
sending
gonna get through
fentanyl
it.
into our.
That's the dumb
It was
thing.
just posturing, bro. It wasn't actually that they're trying to ban.
Yeah,
it
but,
was
like-
just posturing. It was stupid.
was
I don't
scary.
think that. I don't know if it was exactly that scary. It's just stupid, in my opinion.
Yeah, but like same with the idea of trying to get rid of guns, because that will stop violence. No, bad people are still gonna get guns because they don't care about the law.
Yeah.
So now you're just stopping the ability to protect yourself from good people, good
Yeah.
citizens.
I'm gonna. Oh, you
So
mean
now they have to
you're
get cops. Like,
you're
how am I gonna defend
stopping
myself
good
from
citizens from being able to defend themselves, not
Yeah.
defend yourself from good citizens. What?
Like, and also like, how am I gonna fight back with a knife? You
Yeah.
want me to buy a katana?
All right, I'm gonna try to take out this guy right here.
Oh,
So,
dude, he's gotten
2,
destroyed.
3, there we go. Boom, and then
That guy's got.
place. All right, be quiet. I've got to focus. I'm on a timer, right here. All right, here we go. Next phase. Oops. Oh, oops.
Oh yeah, Jace, what's your Wi-Fi password?
You can't log on to it right now because I'm using the Wi-Fi and I need as much as possible. All right. Hopefully I can take this with the 3. Hopefully they win. Oh, no. 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 Damn it. That was it's upstairs. You'll find it. It's pretty easy to find. Damn it.
Of former and current Department of Justice officials as pursuant to our oversight work. So don't believe that just because there isn't floor action that somehow all of our representatives aren't working. We in fact are continuing the work of the Congress.
I heard the point that you made. Everybody heard the point that you made about quote-unquote auto pay for Israel. To the extent there's congressional action required of any kind vis-a-vis Israel, will you be seeking to tie it to support for Ukraine?
No, I'll be seeking to untether any question about Ukraine from any question on Israel. And it's important you ask that question because when we were briefed, well, I think that they deserve their own vote and their own dignity, right? However you feel about Israel and however you feel about Ukraine, I think that a responsible
he has been talking about that we need a single issue
together.
spending bills for like this whole time. So why the fuck would you even ask this question? That's just stupid to ask that question.
Mushing things together, log rolling them, that is the old way of Washington. That's what I'm trying to change. Whether it's our budgeting process or our foreign aid, I want individual votes on separate and disparate questions. I don't want everything.
Okay, but many of your colleagues don't share that view. Is that your understanding? In other words, those who seek to diminish United States support for Ukraine are now looking to this Israel issue as a means of doing so. Unless we get a reduced role for Ukraine, we're not going to support Israel to the extent you'd like us to. That's a sentiment that I'm hearing.
Well, that is not the sentiment from the administration. The administration is trying to combine the question. I am trying to separate the question. And one of the concessions that we did get in House rules that will outlast Speaker McCarthy is the ability in the Rules Committee to be able to raise points of order and raise questions to try to separate those things. In fact, when we had our defense bill, our $886 billion defense bill, Marjorie Taylor Greene was successful in getting a separate vote on the $300 million for Ukraine because of those single subject concessions.
Although I don't really like Marjorie Taylor Greene anymore.
For Ukraine still passed, but it passed
I think that she
with
sold
a
out.
majority of Republicans voting against it. So now we have, for anyone to move legislation to support Ukraine, they would have to roll a majority of the Republicans who now believe we should be less involved in that conflict, but that in no way diminishes our support for Israel, which is very strong in a bipartisan fashion.
Final quick question. What's your answer to my poll question today? Should the Biden administration encourage, quote unquote, de-escalation in Gaza?
I knew I was getting this question. I think the Biden administration should be most focused on really putting pressure on Egypt to set up refugee camps and passageways. You only de-escalate after the military operations are concluded. So my answer to the question would be no today, but I think our diplomatic efforts should be focused on humanitarian passageways to get civilians out of Gaza. If we have a pile of dead Muslim kids, that could increase the amount of terrorism in the world, not decrease it, though I understand Israel's very sincere and legitimate efforts to destroy Hamas once and for all.
But Catherine, put the social media up there. It's probably a complaint either about Gates or me hosting him, so maybe he'll want to respond. Quote, Jordan is the worst of the bad choices for Speaker. Further proof that the GOP cannot govern effectively for all of America. You'd say what to that person at X?
Yeah, at X76, I guess I'm glad you're not a member of the United States Congress, because if you were, you'd know that Jim Jordan is a good man, a virtuous man, someone who is broadly respected across the Republican conference, and you know where he stands. That's a distinction between Jim Jordan and Kevin McCarthy. It's one of the reasons I'm so excited to make him House Speaker.
Right, but people like me say, hey, McCarthy was willing to reach across the aisle and keep the government functioning. McCarthy was willing to reach across the aisle and raise the debt ceiling, lest we would have suffered default. Those are good things. 10 seconds, you get the final word.
Well, I think that Kevin McCarthy was ousted by Democrats and Republicans because he made multiple contradictory promises that he never intended to keep. Jim Jordan puts us back on a path to fiscal sanity.
He was trying
and he gets
to
the Republican Party
make
back into
promises
the fighting posture
to
we need to be in
the
to
Republicans
win
and the
push our policy
Democrats that
objectives.
were just contradictory as
Congressman
fuck.
Gates, thank you for
And
coming back.
Thank you, Michael. Always good to be with you.
If you did one of them, it wouldn't work for the other one.
Leftovers is live. Hassan v. Ethan Lowell. Are they fighting?
After I saw you say this, I was quite shocked because I hadn't heard that. And in my research, looking for it.
I have to pee.
Go ahead, I'll wait for you. No, well, I'll
Flawless debate tactic. Insurmountable.
Go ahead, I'll wait. I'll talk to Dan.
The overwhelming amount of media in the opposite direction that is the regular everyday
just to be
media
clear,
coverage.
we did spend the first 2.5 hours doing just that.
No, I know. I know. But we talked more so about the real issues on the ground.
Had seen this coming. Every Israeli official said it was a complete surprise. And I think we have to sit with that, because as of just a couple days ago, they said that surprise wasn't possible. They said we control every inch of Palestine.
No, they don't!
They said we have walls, we have cameras, yes, we have traitors too, and there's nothing they can do that we won't see of what we do. They were so arrogant. But just less than 24 hours ago on the land, from the sea, and from the air, the people...
That is crazy that they're cheering this on, though. That they're actually cheering on, like, the fucking violence that happened.
Through these settlements where they were told they could never go because of apartheid. Our farmers...
Ethan pulled up that second thought clip with Akeem earlier saying settlers don't equal civilians, and Hassan would have had to defend them, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
you're going just to talk
Pretty
about
stupid.
time, not to...
The farmers of Gaza!
I know, but
I don't think he condemns Hamas, though. Guys!
What
Guys!
time is it?
I don't think this guy condemns Hamas.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that
Mods!
for the year during the...
They say that they can't even have tractors. They say that's terrorist equipment. Well, unfortunately for them, the tractors of these various so-called kibbutz settlements have been liberated and taken back to the farm.
I mean, that's insane, right?
Do you want
I haven't even...
enchiladas?
Yeah, okay. Like...
Okay.
I
I'm
don't...
just criticizing people. You don't have to comment if you're not comfortable about it.
Okay, I mean, I have no...
I mean,
have
he
no,
was just like, I don't like this shit.
Okay.
It bothers me.
I understand why... I understand
He
why you
goes,
don't
the
like it.
electrified hang gliding heroes flew in and killed a bunch of hipsters partying. They were having so much fun at the party till these and heroes showed up and mass murdered everyone. Oh, and we liberated the kibbutz, by the way. Everyone's cheering. We
Okay.
liberated the kibbutz, aka beheading babies.
I will once again present to you the same exact question. If this rally was not held and if he had not said those things that I do not agree with, do you think that there would be a difference in the analysis and the way that Palestinian people are treated? Do you think that there would be a difference in the bombing campaign that's going on? Or do you think that this is, once again, the violent sentiment of...
Hassan is mostly correct here. Like, we have every reason to believe that whether or not people condemn or don't condemn Hamas, it's not going to make Israel any less fucking brutal, right? Like, I agree that Israel should not conflate Hamas with Palestinian liberation, but let's not pretend that if everyone acted super duper good and nice, and we all condemned Hamas and we were all perfect and we were all like me in our response or whatever, that Israel and the whole world would be like, oh, well, now that we see that you don't conflate Hamas and Palestinian liberation, we're actually gonna embargo Israel and get them to lay off on the Palestinian people. That is bullshit. It's one of those overfixation things, right? Like, I agree that the condoning of Hamas is bad, but let's not pretend that that condoning is like institutionally powerful. Does that make sense? Like, don't do the overfixation thing where you turn into one of those losers who acts like, oh, if only the left had perfect optics, then everything would be good, and because they don't, that's the problem, and now I'm going to spend all my time fixating on this. You know, that's why I said, like, the subreddit has to chill out too. Like, yes, you can point out that the lefties are bad on this, but the people suffering here are not suffering because of bad lefty takes. They're suffering because of Israel. So far, Hassan hasn't said anything wrong. Yeah, Demon Mama, I haven't said, I haven't seen Hassan say anything incorrect yet. Though, like, maybe he has. He gets along with the Second Thought, Yogopnik,
Second
Hakeem,
Thought is so fucking
the
stupid,
program
bro.
podcast thing. And that podcast is pretty bad, so maybe he defends them at some point, but I don't really know.
Those who are siding with the oppressed, that is ultimately utterly and entirely inconsequential.
I'll tell you this.
Because
I know
all
that's
this
fucking
does,
evil.
all this does.
I know that.
All this does.
And I have no problem to say it.
All this does is to serve a singular purpose, and that purpose I do not believe you are on board with. But that purpose is cynical. When people go, look at these guys, they're all violent. That is, by design, what mainstream media in America is doing when they constantly, exclusively cover the Palestinian side.
All right.
Here's his take on this, and
there we go.
Let's listen.
Sent Fazal, thank you very much. He says, did the Palestinians actually take civilian hostage, or is that fake news? I don't care.
Yeah, the occupiers are not civilian.
First of all, just straight off the bat.
The person that's targeting is Hakim. He is a doctor in Iraq, and a
genocider of Kurdish people. Yes,
of course. Just to put this into a decent frame of reference for those who are unfamiliar, I think he will probably have a much more ruthless position on the matter, considering how he feels about American forces and what they've done to his
This
home
I'm pretty
and
sure is
family.
all second thought.
No, the one who said...
No, I know.
Yeah.
Here.
Sent Fazal, thank you very much. He says, did the Palestinians actually take civilian hostage, or is that fake news?
So wait, who's talking there?
That's Hakim.
Okay, so
they should have it, if they're doing a live thing, they should have it so their mics activate a little voice bubble.
There we go.
Over them, right? Because they're doing like a live stream where they're like the drawings, so they should have it so when his mic activates, there's like a little beep, and then when his, there's like a beep. That'd be cool.
So second thought's the one who says, I don't care.
Oh, you're stupid.
And laughs.
Oh, you bitch.
I don't care.
This
No,
guy.
that's Hakim.
The guy with the accent.
Yeah, that's Hakim. Second thought is an American.
So second thought is the guy.
Second
who's
thought
asking the
is a
question.
communist who has a second channel that reviews sports like
I don't care.
Anyway, he agrees with him,
supercars.
so let's just listen
go
to
on.
the clip.
The occupiers
I
are
don't-
not civilians. That is what it comes down to. Like, if imagine,
French-
like if
Sorry, go
Germany.
So anyone who
let's say
lives
Germany
in-
to be non.
That's him, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Controversial.
And not that it matters.
invaded the United States, and they said, you know what, Cincinnati, Ohio is our ancestral home, and you know everyone knows that's blatantly false. But they take your home, they murder your grandma,
What's up, Harris?
they bulldoze like your neighbor's house. Are those people civilians there? No, they're
What?
occupiers, and those are criminals. That is, there are no civilians there. And
So-
So according to second thought,
So again, obviously, being a settler or being a participant in a settler colonial project does not make you a militant, and it doesn't make you a criminal. That is not what those words means. It makes
Damn
you
it,
a
I was
settler,
doing so
you know?
good.
I feel, again, it's like that terminological thing where people keep falling into this pit, and people do this time and time again, where they feel like the purpose of many of these terms is to carry moral weight. So if they want to describe something having a bunch of moral weight, they just throw more terms on top of it. It's the same mental disease that leads a lot of lefties when they're making a criticism of doing this, like, I think this person is a problematic, trans-misogynistic, transphobic, da-da-da, where they, like, layer more shit on top of as if they think they're trying to rack up, like, a multiplier combo, and it doesn't, like, add to the description or the meaning. It takes away from the meaning, you know?
He says that
Outside Manhunt? What are you doing in the office, man?
No more stickies, Jeremy.
Acrobat.
Careful, Janice.
I'm gonna go in and try to take America. North America, obviously.
Goose repel.
You're e-signing.
every Israeli is an occupier, and there are no citizens there in response to decapitating babies, which I can now say.
There are two different schools of thought here. So, the first is...
And the take in the comments is based.
Yeah, of course. The 1948ers...
I'll just be here, whatever.
...believe that there's two different schools of thought within, I would say, anti-Zionism.
Total hypothetical, would Jews escaping a concentration camp be wrong and murdering a bunch of German citizens? Well, hold on. That depends massively on the context.
Yeah,
if they break out of a concentration camp and German citizens try to stop them,
they can't just go and
they
kill
can do
fucking
whatever they
civilians.
want. Like in their effort to escape or whatever, like they're trying to like get out of the area or like escape to some neighboring country, and citizens are trying to like civilians are trying to stop them. Yeah, that's self-defense, baby. Those if they get stopped, they get killed. They can do whatever they want on the way out. But if they escape and then like vindictively out of revenge start killing civilians, then no, of course that's bad. You may argue that like the civilians are still morally culpable. Yeah, but like if we're doing that, we got to do it through trials. You know, we can't do like the infinite circle of vengeance where it's just like people have like carte blanche permission to just murder because they're like associated with or adjacent to the cause. You don't know directly. You can't know personally. But if they try to stop you, then that's self-defense, yeah.
Those who believe that all matter of settlements that were propped up even in the inception of the Israeli nation state are...
If someone sees them, would it be morally right to kill them so they can't go to the police? I don't know. At this point, we're getting into like granulars, right? At this point, we're getting like increasingly morally dicey. I guess my default would be if you are a Jew who broke out of a concentration camp and you're like freaking out and just doing whatever you can to survive, and then on the way you like killed a guy because he saw you and you wanted to shut him up. I don't know if I have it in my heart to denounce that.
I also
like,
think that's a lot different than what happened
like,
in
can you
Israel,
put yourself in the mind state of a Jew who just broke out of a concentration camp and is trying to escape? You are in like the most possible, you are in like the most hostile territory conceivable, you know? Like so my default here would be like, there's no morally clean direction, but I'm gonna be really fucking sympathetic to anyone in that spot, you know? It's the same reason why, like, in the Haitian Revolution, the Haitian revolutionaries killed a lot of innocent people while they were, like, breaking free of their chains to take the island, and I don't really morally condemn that. What I do morally condemn is after the revolution had won, they had mixed-race slaves go door to door, killing white families who had already been captured as a way of proving their loyalty to the black revolutionaries over the white slave owners. That's what I morally condemn. Because, like, in that case, the violence has taken place after the context where it can be used in, like, a self-defensive manner. But I still defend the overall revolution, because, honestly, like, really messed up shit like that happens in revolutionary conditions. And you can condemn the messed up behavior without condemning the broader project, right? Yeah. Basically, every just war has had within it unjust behavior, you know? Like, the Allies, I'm sure, like, Allied soldiers did plenty of up shit to civilians moving in on Germany. Like, I'm sure, of course. Like, and you can point that out, but that's not an argument against, like, the broader... Yeah, war is bad, basically, is the whole thing. How does this compare to Israel-Palestine? It doesn't really. Because the situation is different. The situation is much more complicated. Human Rights Watch has come out and said Israel has used white phosphorus in Gaza and Lebanon. Right now? This is confirmed now? Oh, holy shit. Okay, those videos were verified. Wow. That's insane. there's no reason for them to even be doing this. Like this is just pure like terror tactics. I guess it's kind of good that the Gaza Strip is so dense that it's basically all concrete or whatever. I don't think they have much wood building material there. White phosphorus could light the entire strip ablaze if the conditions were right. I guess they're right next to the water too.
Are unjustifiable, and that they are settlers. So they extend beyond your perspective that you agree with, which is West Bank is a settler occupation.
I think it's an extremely evil thing to say. What he said.
Let me ask you this.
No. What do you think? What he said is evil?
I think it is, one, unproductive, and two, it does not meet the realities on the ground. And
holy shit! Hassan has put on his optics glove.
You should let me play a game. Jace, ready?
I only got these 2 games.
Do what's his name?
And his optics hat and his optics coat today. Holy shit! Oh my god! Hassan is coming out here in his optics gear. He's huffed a big line of optics before coming out here. He is being so measured in his response. He's trying so hard to keep all of these lines together. You know,
it's not a viable solution.
So calling, just to be clear, calling babies.
No, of course not.
Settlers.
Of course.
And they're not even living.
They're not.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
they're babies.
So I just want to say,
I have a question for you.
that this guy's a fucking evil piece of shit for saying that.
Can I ask you a question?
Can I finish? Let me finish the
Okay,
video.
we'll finish this, but I do have a question for you because I think you're going to agree with something I'm about to say.
Yes. Let's just finish it and then we'll talk.
Invaded the United States, and they said, you know what? Cincinnati, Ohio is our ancestral home, and everyone knows that's blatantly false. But they take your home, they murder your grandma, they bulldoze like your neighbor's house. Are those people civilians there? No, they're occupiers, and those are criminals.
Okay, the people who bulldozed your house and murdered your mom, I assume would be the IDF, who are soldiers. All of the people involved here are settlers, but that doesn't mean that all the settlers aren't civilians. You can be a settler and a civilian. A civilian, the civilian distinction is just civilian or military, basically. It's combatant or non-combatant. You know, settler is a modifier, but it doesn't determine either of those.
And everyone is a fucking settler, honestly, like if you go back far enough.
So that's number one.
I mean, that's so callous. It's kind of hard to even believe just how flippant he can be about calling babies militants that are deserving to be killed.
I don't think those murdered were even settlers. It was original Israeli territory. Well, original Israeli territory goes back to like 48. There were people alive who saw Israel take their original territory. So, you know, depending on where you want to put that line. But even then, there were also the people at the rave or whatever.
Very beautifully put. Number two, much more importantly,
who were the Viet Cong, combatants or civilians? Combatants. The Viet Cong were a formal military. People have this idea the Viet Cong were all just like rice farmers with hats and old rifles. They were a full military.
If they weren't
like with drills and regiment
military,
and
we would have destroyed them.
The track record
we
of
would have
Palestinians
destroyed
has
them,
been
and it was
1,000
pretty
times better than that of the Israeli occupation. Despite the fact that Israeli occupation does
in a
not
lot of
need
ways.
to brutalize, they already have all the
we
power.
didn't win.
But they still choose to do far worse. The worst that will happen to a person in Palestinian custody is that they're going to be like auctioned off for a prisoner swap, which is the historic track record also.
Yeah.
And of course,
he's not wrong about this. This is the original goal for the military, the excursion. At least if you believe.
I'm not exactly having a ton of faith in the dudes that decapitated babies treating.
NVA was a military.
Especially when
Viet
I'm
Cong
streaming, because
sorry,
it's easier.
the NVA were former military. The Viet Cong, however, like they weren't. Guerrilla army doesn't just mean like civilian farmers with guns or whatever. Like the Viet Cong did have like a much more regimented system for engagement than people often give them credit
but
for.
you have to pay for games, bro.
Their POWs really well.
Well,
yeah,
I think that's kind of a psychotic take too, where it's like It's like, why are you trying to give Hamas the benefit of the doubt on this one? You know, being like, oh, they treat their prisoners awesome. You know, let's not try to do that.
Okay. So,
but anyway, and that combined with just the callous, the laughter.
Listen.
Hi, my name is Alina, and I would like to give you a few reasons why you should consider dating a young Slavic lady. You can choose a potential spouse from Ukraine, Russia, Belarus. Geography is boundless. Have you noticed that Slavic women have become more and more popular? I mean that they are everywhere. In famous magazines, on Instagram as top bloggers, on the runways and on the billboards. More importantly, they are in men's hearts, because most of them have everything that an object of fascination is supposed to have. Natural beauty, stunning bodies, charisma and light temper. Yes, these ladies are beautiful. And even you can't deny that a lot of men
Hold on.
Did the Palestinians actually take civilian hostage, or is that fake news? I don't.
A bunch of people were on it.
Don't care.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're laughing about it.
That's pretty weird, Shem.
What is this?
Let me pose a question for you.
Go ahead.
So you have said that those in the West Bank are fundamentalist settlers. Are you familiar with the international law surrounding
That's a lot of fucking money.
The justifiable forms of violence towards.
So first of all,
terror.
I don't put much.
Hakeem and second thought are actually evil. Yeah, I kind of. I think Yagupnik is better though. He was supposed to come on stream and talk like ages ago, and I recently remembered to message him, and he didn't message back, so he might have like shifted over more. But he's not like them. He's better than them, I think.
I don't put any stock, frankly, in whatever these quote international laws are.
Yeah, it's.
But no, I'm not familiar with whatever that says.
Technically, the reason why the IDF has to exist in the West Bank and behave in the oppressive manner that they behave is because Palestinians, and this is going to sound very radical and possibly very violent, but this is a matter of law, and maybe even if you agree with this, a matter of morality. Palestinians have the legal ground to violently seize back their own homes from the settlers. This is a reality, and that is precisely the reason why they have to exist under endless occupation in the West Bank.
You know what? And that's why I say, if it was settlers, that would be a lot more.
That's true.
Shit.
What he said definitely isn't wrong. They were literally like forced out at gunpoint in violation of international law.
How the hell?
Like
he has so
100%,
little
yeah.
amount of people. They must be just
and,
strong
like,
as shit.
depending on what level we're operating on legally, the
I guess that a lot of the people who I just got aren't there yet.
These live games?
What do you mean? Am I playing with other people?
Yeah.
No, this is against a computer.
people who are ousted from the West Bank, absolutely, like that is.
I know.
They have been illegally taken from their territory. Like,
I think you might
think
be
of
able
this
to play against
comparatively
other
in the
people.
United States. If you have a house and then a bunch of criminals like kick you out of the house, you're allowed, like you can defend yourself. You know. And this is why I say that Israel uses human shields, because by having the vanguard of their occupational effort be repped by
Both
settlers,
of them
by
are just
civilians,
shit.
They're essentially making it impossible to fight back against their occupational force without engaging in civilians.
Are understandable.
I know, I have
but
it here a lot
let's
of times,
not
but sometimes I move it when I'm eating.
obfuscate. Okay, I understand what you're
And
saying.
I just haven't moved
but
it
this
back.
dude just called babies militants.
No, I understand. And there are baby settlers as
the-
well. But there are baby settlers as
What?
well. There are babies in the settlements.
But the babies that killed were not.
I know.
Okay, so
now
here's
that we established that, no, hold on. Now that we established that, the other school of thought here is that all matter of Israelis living on Israel proper are
guys, the babies are a settler. Like, if you're a settler or like a colonist or whatever, you can be that as a baby or a 95-year-old. This is why you can't attach moral weight to the term. The term, like, this baby is a colonist, like, a baby can be a colonist, a baby can be a settler. That's why the term settler should not in your mind immediately go like, oh, a valuable target to kill or whatever. Like, the term simply describes the relationship that you have to the land that you're on. That's the
No.
case whether or not you made a choice to do it or
I mean,
not. It's just a
they are launching
descriptor of
missiles,
your
too.
relationship to the land. Settler, colonist, civilian, whatever. You know, the only thing you really can't have, I guess, is like a non-civilian baby, because it's a baby. A baby can't be a legitimate military target.
they're also
Fair, but second thought implied the consequence of that. That's because second thought is saying you can't be a civilian if you're a settler, which is bullshit.
They're at the high ground, so
all settlers are otherwise they would be in the military. They would be in the occupational force. Well, I guess you can have a person who is a settler, but who is also a soldier in the area they're settling. But then I guess I would just call them a soldier, not really like a settler. Whatever.
Doing the exact same thing in the eyes of some. I do not agree with that because
hold on.
I mean, I don't have
now consider. Now let's ground our priors and consider the hypotheticals at play here. Let's isolate the variables so we can determine what we actually believe. Sorry.
Because I don't think that that is a reasonable solution, and it's not realistic anyway, and that only will lead to the complete evisceration of Palestinians, and far-right Israelis will use that to continuously radicalize just regular Israeli citizens in their endless bombing campaigns and ethnic cleansing campaigns and the brutal occupation. This is why many thinkers, I believe even including Norm Finkelstein, who has dedicated his entire life to speaking the truth about Israel's occupation, and Noam Chomsky and many others, even Edward Said, as I brought up earlier.
Hassan's trying to glaze over the schizo shit. Hakeem and second thought were saying lol. The problem is that again, there is absolutely no way to come out morally clean here. The status quo right now with Israel's occupation is genocidal. It's monstrous. So how should Palestine resist? Well, following like the logical through line, okay, if Palestinians are not given an option to manage this diplomatically, which they clearly haven't been, diplomacy has done nothing for them in decades and decades and decades, obviously Palestinians have a moral right to resist through violence, right? Like, and if they resist through violence, innocents will be killed. Because that is what happens when you resist through violence. Innocents are being killed right now in Gaza through indiscriminate Israeli airstrikes, as they have been for a long time. There is no way out of this without violence, okay? However, here are the problems I have. For one, Hamas is not an emancipatory or revolutionary organization. They are jihadist militants who do not act in the best interests of the Palestinians. If the Palestinians had a super ultra principled secular militia that fought back, two things would happen. For one, innocents would die. The death of innocents is always regrettable. However, again, innocents are dying right now in Gaza, and Israel is the institution that set up this set of circumstances. They are the ones who made this conflict unavoidable. For two, if Palestinians resisted in a super principled and secular way, they would lose. Badly. This is why the situation seems so untenable. If Palestinians were capable of some overwhelming victory, even if it cost a lot of lives in the short term, I would think that morally justifiable, because the long-term consequences of the continued Palestinian occupation seem to be genocidal. But that's not the case. This isn't like South Africa, where South African society was built pretty much entirely on the labor of black South Africans, and there are nine black South Africans to every one white South African. In a situation like that, the black South Africans are this like large revolutionary mass potentially that is capable. They're capable of meaningfully addressing this issue through force. Not so with the Palestinians. The Palestinians are not broadly integrated into Israel's economy and society at large. Israel could, theoretically, wipe Gaza off the face of the map and continue to function. The same is not the case with black South Africans. So again, what's the solution here? It seems like every direction leads to the killing of civilians. If the Palestinians continue to not resist in a meaningful and organized way, they die. If Palestinians rise up and form this like mass secular militia, they lose. And then die. If Palestinians engage in like jihadist terrorist attacks against Israel, innocents from Israel die, and then more innocents in Gaza die. You guys understand the problem here? Literally every direction entails civilian death. Who is responsible for this? Israel. The government of Israel has set in play all of the pieces that make this a fact of the matter. Israel could change this. Israel could stop the slaughter. They could properly liberate the Palestinian people, could bring about peace. They do not. They choose not to their mutual detriment, both them and Palestinians, because they are hateful, because they are evil. So, again, there's not really any...
All right, let's cut the bullshit. Let's be honest. What worked for our parents and our grandparents is not going to work for us.
Good path here.
True.
I just don't like...
Nowadays, there's no way that you can work
the conflation
for a company,
of Palestinian
get a 401k,
liberation
and then retire at a young age. Like that's
believe
just
that
stupid to think that that's
the
a possibility.
de-Zionification or the displacement of Israelis from Israel proper, Jewish Israelis, is not it's not justifiable and it's not realistic. It's more so a single state solution, at least one that I advocate for, because I know a lot of people advocate for a two-state solution. I'm a one-stater, which
was there a question?
What?
I thought you said I have a question for you at the beginning of that.
I gave you the question. You already answered it. You said I know your position on like violently seizing back your land from settler occupiers.
That's not what they did though. And that's
these
who
guys.
he's talking
No,
about.
these guys, or at least I assume second thought has the perspective that all matter of Israel is all matter of Israel proper is considered settler occupation.
And he's evil for thinking that. He is. Right after babies were murdered and decapitated.
All
I can say that
it's
now.
not 19...
Let me read his further.
If he said this in 1949, I'd have a different opinion on the matter. You can't say this in 2023. I agree.
Let me read this. Thank you for agreeing. What's going on in occupied Palestine is unprecedented. No doubt we'll have wall-to-wall coverage of atrocities now that it's the genocidal settlers on the receiving end. This is what liberation struggle looks like. Solidarity and victory to the Palestinian people. Again, just to put the timing in frame here, he says, no doubt we'll have wall-to-wall coverage when Israel responds. This is while bodies are still bleeding.
Oh, I guess the second part did.
I mean, they did have wall-to-wall coverage once the Israelis responded.
He wasn't wrong on the second part of that conversation, at least. Okay.
They recruited.
Which part are you referring to?
Wall-to-wall coverage when Israel responds.
Right, but like,
they recruited.
And this is my problem.
300,000
so as the bodies are
to go outside of
still bleeding out, and
Gaza.
He's saying this is what liberation struggle looks like: beheading babies. Burning
that's
families
fucked
alive.
up.
Solidarity and victory to the Palestinian people. This is pro-Hamas. This man is supporting Hamas.
Yeah.
This is such a difficult thing for me to weigh in on, man. This is really difficult.
Jesus says no to both of them. It's like, nah, y'all ain't right, bro. The only way to the Father is through me. That's what Jesus says.
Difficult for me to weigh in on, because it's like every piece I disagree with some things and some implications, but then I agree with some other stuff, and I don't agree with Ethan on everything. For instance, the idea that Israeli suffering is given much more media attention than Palestinian suffering is objectively true. Like, the Palestinians have been kept in an open-air prison for decades, killed indiscriminately, and then you have people like Justin Bieber posting, you know, like, peace for Israel, or like praying for Israel over a picture of Gaza that's been blown apart or whatever. Like, yeah, there is always been, like, Western media has consolidated to speak on the crimes of Hamas and not on the crimes that Israel is currently committing. We literally have, like, Israeli leaders saying, genocide the Palestinians, cut them off with the water, you know? 2.5 million people without water and
How do
power.
I recruit,
and then the attention is still being given to, like, the babies that were killed. Babies have been killed in Gaza. Like, many babies. Half of the population of the Gaza Strip is children.
Lord.
And they will die without water or power because of decisions Israel is deliberately making. So that is correct, at least.
I think his position is that people that have been trapped, and I can't speak for him, but you can if you want to talk to him. I'm sure he would be willing to come on and speak his piece. I've already mentioned that I don't find this to be particularly helpful or productive as far as this conversation goes, not because, like, I am tasked with defending the positions of other people or even criticize them. It's more so that we know what is currently happening, we are now 3-4 days removed from October 7, and we know what the retaliation looked like, and we know what the occupation has looked like every single day.
That was an obvious reaction.
So that's why I'm saying,
but again,
that's what I'm saying.
up,
Like
timing
a
matters.
YouTuber with
Hold on, this guy's influential.
No, I know, Ethan, but his influence is nothing in comparison to the multi-billion-dollar media
I
operation.
just want to call this guy out. That's what I want to do.
You can call him out.
I just spent
and you can ask
2.5 hours calling out Israel. So now this guy, second thought, he's supporting Hamas. He is pro-Hamas. That's what solidarity. Hold on.
Okay.
Solidarity and
are Hamas and Palestine the same thing, or is the Palestinian government fighting Hamas too? There isn't really a Palestinian government. There was one election nearly 20 years ago that Hamas won, and Hamas has basically been like criminal, like gang leaders of. There's no democracy in Palestine. There's no real government. You know, Hamas's leaders enrich themselves while radicalizing jihadists. Most people in the Gaza Strip are children, and even ignoring that, most of them have no faith in Hamas. There's just like there's nothing there. Yeah, there's the Palestinian Authority, but how much real governmental control does the Palestinian Authority have? Also, Hamas is in Gaza, not in the West Bank. Yes, Hamas is a Gaza thing. I mean, I'm sure there are some people in the West Bank with sympathies, but they're concentrated in Gaza.
and victory to the Palestinian people. Again, the timing that I keep mentioning, as bodies are being counted, is pro-Hamas. That's it. That's it. There's no other way to interpret that. And it's evil. He continues, imagine someone comes to your town, murders your neighbors, kicks you out of the home your family lived in for generations, and relocates you. Are those occupiers civilians? No.
Well,
they're criminals and accomplices in genocide.
So this is second thought being completely wrong. Notice how in his hypothetical, the person who murders your neighbors, kicks you out of your home, and relocates you to an open-air prison is all the same guy. Yeah, if that one person is the same, if that one guy, probably not a civilian if he murdered your neighbors and then took you to a camp, okay? But the problem is he is ascribing this broadly to just all Israeli people. Like, are these occupier civilians? I don't think every Israeli was the one who killed your neighbors and took you to Gaza, you know? I don't think that's... I don't think that's the case.
It's again referring to babies who were decapitated. At least, but again, that doesn't matter. 40 babies died at this kibbutz. Okay? Kids also, children, families. Peaceful kibbutzim. Many of them actually pro-Palestine advocates. He said that they are...
Yeah, 11% approval rating for Hamas as of a YouGov poll in May. Probably lower now.
Criminals and accomplices.
Okay, we don't know if they were pro-Palestine advocates. Let's not go that far.
What? That's positive. That's...
What you
think that none of the people killed were
I mean, I don't know that. I'm saying, like, I don't know why you're adding that. It doesn't even matter because ultimately,
it does
they
matter.
Still died. They shouldn't die.
Okay, right.
My position.
But it does make it especially ironic when he's calling them accomplices in genocide when their only crime is being born somewhere.
Yeah. No, I agree with you.
It's evil. I just want to say that.
I agree with you.
Okay, good.
I don't disagree.
Probably have a shot of winning against Hamas. Do you guys think if I ran for election in the Gaza Strip before it gets turned into a park? Parking lot? Do you think I could win against Hamas? Like a new leadership, a new day breaks?
With you on this at all.
Thank you.
But that's not my... But...
Bro, I'm just calling it out.
Okay,
this guy's a fucking... He's a scumbag.
If you want, you have the opportunity. You can speak to him if you want on this particular issue.
I'll think about it. But
so I don't know why you're...
I'm not demanding you respond, but I simply, as a matter of doing the show, want to call out the people that disgusted me. Because again, I hear this all the time. People go, oh, really? Well, show me an example.
I know, but
MemTime is a software for Windows, Mac, and Linux that automatically records your time in programs. That's right, MemTime tracks every minute for you while you work, no matter if in documents, in emails, or in the browser. Imagine, for example, writing something in Word. MemTime will recognize it and automatically display the time you have worked on this.
Well, here's one.
No, of course there are examples of this. It's just entirely and utterly inconsequential, and I 100% stand by that.
It's not. He's an influential man. When you're,
I don't think it's inconsequential. I think that people on the online left immediately doing this, like, yeah, Hamas is liberatory and all Israeli civilians are legitimate military targets. I think it's pretty stupid. Yeah, I don't think that our behavior on this one is going to like make or break peace in the Middle East. I don't think that Israel would behave better if we behaved better, but I think it's important to talk about and call out. Yeah.
Expressing these kinds of...
Okay, let's walk through that. What do you think is the negative consequence of this? Do you think that people are going to see this and go, oh, I should go to
So should I not care about it?
I think that if you look at the reality, and I know you recognize it, a YouTuber saying this kind of thing and spending any time or any effort on this, when your moral position is clear, when mine is clear, spending any time on this whatsoever to be like, we got to clean up our own homes here, deviates from the actual message that must be unflinching. The message is that these violent means of ensuring that the occupation continues is going to inevitably lead to more violence that Israelis will be subjected to as well.
Normalizing murdering civilians.
He has no.
It leads people to have bad takes on the situation. It leads people to have essentialist takes, to overestimate the extent to which Hamas can be a liberatory force for Palestinian people. We should always be willing to criticize people on our own side for bad takes. I don't think we should hyperfixate on them and pretend that they're the only thing that matters, but there's certainly value in calling it out. And again, Second Thought is a pretty big YouTuber too. It's not like he's an inconsequential figure or whatever.
No capacity to do so.
And the result of that...
I think a better argument would be that it's anti-Semitic. You could say that, well, not what he's saying, but that it could lead to people listening to what he's saying and then think that like all Jews are responsible.
Okay,
and
so
think
it's
that like
consequential. The stuff that he's saying matters.
That would
but
be...
my point is, if I can finish my point, is that this guy who proposes to be this Palestinian advocate, he is encouraging the murder of civilians, babies, etc., in an effort to free the occupation.
I don't think he's encouraging it. I think he's justifying it.
No, he says, hold on.
Oh man, he destroyed that guy.
No, he says this is what liberation struggle looks like. What's the liberation struggle about murdering families? But I wanted to say this. This guy who purports to care so much about Palestine, his advocating for killing civilians, the result of that is going to be basically what's happening in Gaza now, which is that Israel, which is, again, genocidal, violent, psychopathic people in power are, it's like the result of this is Netanyahu gets more power and consolidates when people already hated him. The international community that was giving a lot of general support for Palestine and Gaza and all that. There was a lot of
Yeah, Hydronal, I also don't fully agree with what Ethan is saying here. This is why I think this is like a very difficult conversation to mediate.
I know you're going to debate me. There was a lot of sentiment, especially in Europe, for being like, yo, we need to...
Ethan,
we need to look at this
the entire planet has regularly condemned the illegal occupation time and time again. You know who has said off to that? The United States of America and Israel and sometimes Ukraine. So it does not matter.
Well, there are plenty of European governments right now that are complicit in this. It's not just the US and Israel and Ukraine. No, Ukraine has done this before. UN vote, Israel, USA, Ukraine. They've done this before, I think. But Israel's still complaining. Ukraine's backing of 90% of UN anti-Israel votes could hurt support. Israel envoy. Man, dude, Israel is such an evil f***ing country. Yeah. Oh, sorry, you're voting against our horrific occupation and brutality in the United Nations? Ooh, I don't know if we can provide you any support in the future, man. Well, I mentioned it. I'm pretty sure there have been a few weird votes where Ukraine joined America in supporting Israel, but I don't remember the exact ones. Apparently, Israel is not impressed, so...
What the condemnation even looks like. It doesn't change anything. Palestinians...
Let me finish my
Okay,
point.
go ahead. Finish your point.
The point is...
Ethan, no!
that the result of this, these people are pro-Palestine, the result of this is literally the opposite of any possible intended consequence, which is A, Netanyahu gets more power internationally and domestically when people already fucking hated him and his government. The Western countries are basically backing up Israel's genocide and encouraging it and sanctioning it. The Gazans are now being bombed, their food, power, water is being shut off, although that happens regardless at times.
Always.
But so like
if the argument here is that if Second Thought had not tweeted this, or if other YouTubers and other people on Twitter had not tweeted their celebrations, that do we think that the world's perspective would be different on Israel's bombing campaign currently? If you think that, like, legitimately, if not a single person had tweeted this, do you think that the situation on the ground would be different?
Does it matter to you that this might be anti-Semitic?
Oh, wait, what do you mean?
Well, you're saying you're treating this as if it doesn't matter at all, and that's
yes,
you're not.
I don't think it matters at all.
And you're not Israeli.
Yeah, I don't think...
This is really dumb. I have no idea why Hassan here has to pretend that, like, a large content creator making incorrect statements has no effect. And I have no idea why we would, like, pretend to die on this hill. Like, that's really, really stupid.
I don't think it matters at all in the grand scheme of things whatsoever.
So you're saying...
Because the question
I've noticed that, like, one of the default cope takes that people will go to when they disagree with like, when somebody...
So you're advocating for single moms?
No, I am advocating for women to go get educated because your kids end up doing better statistically.
Bro.
Yo.
Okay. Yes.
Bruh. It's fine. You wanted to ask
Fuck, bro. Why is this
the question
lagging?
to Ty if intelligence matters as much? Because I was saying for me it's not as important on the totem pole, but what about you?
Well, IQ is heritable, like you said. It's like 0.8. So I wouldn't have kids with a dumb girl. But I think with a balance of what you're trying to say, there's truth. Men, here's the thing. We search for our genes to offset our weaknesses. That's why, for example, like really tall dudes will be dating a 5'2" girl. Because that dude knows subconsciously. Like my stepdad was 6'7", and my mom was like average height, and he didn't care. And so you'll see a lot of really tall dudes. In fact, tall women complain about the fact, the tall dudes don't care. I'm like, because he brings so much to the table. So a super high IQ or a higher IQ dude oftentimes will not care quite as much about IQ
So
because
you don't
he's
believe in
subconscious.
assortative mating or the similarity
Yeah, that is
attraction?
so assortative mating is an interesting one. You're smart that you know that. Assortative mating is an interesting thing. Sometimes we're attracted, but it's very domain specific. Sometimes we're attracted to our
People are trying
equals,
Mm-hmm.
like arm length studies. They've done stuff like that. But sometimes we're okay with our opposites.
Yeah, but generally people tend to date with the attraction similarity hypothesis too, across IQ, across education.
One
across-
standard deviation. So, for example, a man who has like, let's say a high IQ man, 145, that's pretty smart. You start to get
that is pretty
astrophysicist
fucking
level. he'll be okay with a woman that's one standard deviation.
man.
So a 145
Coming in
doesn't need a
with
145.
Yeah,
In
I
fact, the sciences in general, and you could say this is good or bad, men tend to date slightly lower IQ.
Yeah.
But
It overall in the same bracket is what we're
yes,
saying.
if you're 145 IQ, if you're Stephen Hawking,
What?
155, you can't be dating a 100.
Yeah, it's in the fridge. Do you need it right now?
100 IQ, you have
Exactly.
nothing to talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
But the point is, I think the truth about it is men are superficial. We think it's superficial, but it's actually very intelligent. Men are also a badass businessman. Okay, take Elon Musk. He's not necessarily out there marrying his intellectual equivalent. Look at who he married.
No.
Yeah.
He didn't marry his intellectual equivalent. He did. I mean, he's a smart, almost savant level. So I think these are tricky things. I think what you're saying is true. Men like agreeableness.
Yeah.
But I think it goes deeper. I think where people women get mad is they think it's some kind of evil thing. Men have preferences because it worked. You know? I saw this at the Amish, for example. The Amish have the lowest divorce rate in the world. Happiest people. Old school, I'll tell you, back when there was physical labor, women never wanted men's jobs. I see it. I'm going this week. I go. Dudes are out here. I was at an Amish community that was super old fashioned. They were cross-cutting logs. And so men were strong and powerful, and everybody was good with it, and the women were okay. They're like, I don't want to do that. I want to cook and raise a family. Part of it is that men can't have kids, so you got to have delegation of the sexes. So women, we can't give birth. Women have a superpower, you know what I mean?
So women are special?
Of course. I mean,
Thank you.
sex,
What?
I mean, shit, giving birth's a big fucking thing, man. That's why I think sometimes women get mad that men care that they can have kids and we're just baby making machines. You reproduce life, man. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
And
They also found that the higher IQ for a man, the more ability he has to be married, but the higher IQ points for women, the lower the probability of finding a mate and getting married. So, like, it tells you that men don't care about that shit in general. Like, yeah, is it cool to be able to have a girl that's not a retard? Sure. But in general, like, if a girl's hot, a guy's gonna be like, you know what? I'm willing to tolerate her being less intelligent. Like,
They're
men
gonna
don't
get
care
more.
about that.
They're gonna get in more arguments though because she's not gonna understand
Actually, the
and
intelligent girl's gonna
comprehend.
be
No.
because she's gonna be more combative.
And I'm sure you
that's
know
not
about
true.
proximity.
I mean,
if you're
maybe her.
intelligent, you're around a lot of other intelligent people. If you're a lawyer like I am, I'm an exception, but you're around usually a lot of other lawyers, and lawyers tend to marry other lawyers. Doctors tend to marry other doctors. They're intelligent women or highly college educated women. Again, we're the only ones who our divorce rates aren't going down. They don't seem to have trouble finding husbands.
Yeah, it's not even agreeableness has nothing to do with age. It has to do with your demeanor. No, it doesn't.
Oh, fuck.
You think you're gonna argue more? Have you been in relationships where you argue a lot when you're a 40-year-old couple, or you think you're gonna have more arguments in a relationship with a 21-year-old couple? The 21-year-old couple is gonna fight way more than the older couple.
Well, that's why men men prefer women that are younger than them.
But if you marry a woman under 25, you're divorced. Statistically, you're going to be way more likely to get divorced.
And that depends on their age too, because there's just, I don't know how many men you guys talk to, but besides in Miami, but people just want to be able to relate to the person that they're around all the time. And you can't relate that well to someone who's that
Not
much
necessarily.
younger.
Hyper masculine men prefer hyper feminine women.
Hyper masculine?
Yes, the guys that are the guys that women find attractive, the dominant and assertive guys, they typically want a very feminine woman.
Once everything's perfectly organized, I'll start working on my thesis.
Well, that's a different thing. You can be feminine at any age, obviously, but agreeableness and your demeanor and your personality is something you're going to carry through your life. If you're an argumentative, combative person when you're 18, you're going to be like that when you're 40. Or if you're like a calm, like more reasonable person when you're young.
Arguing, being non-agreeable is not a feminine trait. It's a,
being agreeable is feminine?
Being non-agreeable is not a feminine trait. That's a more masculine trait to be non-agreeable.
But and then that's so.
And that's what men don't like. Like men don't want to sit there and argue with women. Like it's.
Yeah, but that and you're right about that. But I'm just saying that being that way, it has nothing to do with age. It's maybe it is about your testosterone levels.
Women that
as
are
a
younger
woman.
are going to be, if you're an older guy and you're with a younger girl, it's going to be less likely for her to argue with you. And then if she's also had less experiences, she's been less promiscuous.
So why
That's
is she
not
more
true.
likely to divorce you than a woman who's closer to your age?
She's gonna argue with you all the time because she's young
I'm
and
not
mature.
believing anything you're saying because
No.
you say a bunch of BS stats.
I mean, guys, look it up.
you,
Don't
you
get your.
literally,
I mean,
you
they
literally
have-
come on here and you say a bunch of nonsense that
I
isn't
will post
necessarily
everything
true.
to my Instagram if you guys want to follow it.
Yeah, sure.
No, fuck out of here.
I'm just
See,
speaking.
that's what
I'm
trying
just
to say,
speaking from
bro.
experience.
Like you came
Follow
in here
my
last
Instagram.
time and you said a bunch of BS and I got a million DMs like this is a lie, this is a link, blah blah blah. Does she make this astroturf? It's
Yeah,
a
but
lie.
you don't get. That's how you don't look at you. You do actual research. You don't look at your illiterate chat or DMs.
No,
You
they
look
gave
at,
me. They literally gave me the data, and they're like, "Yo,
Okay,
don't
so-
bring this girl back."
so
like, I'm
literally-
actually. I'll be honest. I am amazed that you're here again because it's like.
I mean,
like,
I didn't
was
know.
Like,
Sorry.
Like
Hey,
the amount of like, what the fuck, Chris? Like, yo, the amount of complaints that I got from you being here last time and things that you said.
your chat doesn't like. Your chat doesn't like when you get challenged. They want to just see women getting roasted.
No, it's not about that.
It's
It's not about that. If you're gonna come.
These are
You gotta
just the
come-
stats, guys. I'm not making this up. You guys all have access to the
Do
internet.
you
If
see
you're
how you
watching
cut him
this,
off
look
right
it
now?
up.
Like he was
I'm
talking,
sorry for cutting you off.
but you do it many times.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I said before. You've said a bunch of things that have been fact checked and they're not true.
This is true. You guys have access to the internet. You can check it.
Well, one thing on disagreeable, for sure, testosterone is what makes you disagreeable, and men are sometimes 40x. Like I was telling them on the other show, like I did my blood test one time, and my total test was 1,200, and then my cousin did it, Maya, and she was 35 or something. And I told her, "Oh, you gotta do it again. The lab must have broke, and she's like, I called the doctor, and he said that's normal." So men tend to be, I'll give you this example. You got somebody breaking in your house, you want 10 Navy SEAL like police dudes showing up, ripping somebody to shreds. You don't want, in general, women are going to be much less aggressive. And so when you were talking about raising kids,
Bro, this
one of the
sucks.
things that science shows is that a man is, for like a son, a father and a son, there's certain times in life. It's good to always have a father around, but a father's extra important at certain times. You actually brought up teenagers. Like a son, only a father can stop a son who's big and strong from getting out of hand. I remember I had a big stepdad, 6'7" guy. Like I was kind of a strong-willed kid. So yeah, the single family thing, just going back, I'm bringing up some past stuff. Sometimes there's a reason nature created. You got to go deep. Why did ferns do asexual reproduction? The plant, ferns. They do little spores. My grandpa was an expert on ferns. He used to say, there's no male and females here. Earthworms, they don't have males and females. They have, like hermaphrodite reproduction. But for
Is she watching?
I don't know. I guess.
some reason nature, or if you're more religious, you could say God made sexual reproduction. And so a lot of this stuff we argue about, we're arguing with nature. We're arguing with God. God made two. And so a kid needs two. And whenever you don't have two, you have a problem. Now, as I said, my personal belief, I don't know if I'm red pill, blue pill, whatever, marriage is man-made. A lot of times, if you believe in the Bible, these motherfuckers weren't getting married. People weren't all, marriage is a new thing. But long-term mating, man, women being together, raising a kid, that shit has been there forever and it's important. And I do think men in general are meaner, grumpier. And so a lot of dudes don't want to have a kid with their exact equal mean, grumpy woman. They just don't. There needs to be an offsetting. Now, I do agree once in a while there's happy couples where the woman is the mean, grumpy one and the male. But in general, it's just not that way. It's like the science is in. You know what's funny? You get a lot of truth when you live on a farm with animals. Because I have a farm. And you don't have to worry about adjusting for culture. Like my cows, the bulls are fucking mean, dude. You're 100 times more likely to get killed by a bull. These bulls are mean. And actually, in a textbook, this is interesting. If you look at it's called grading cattle. So if you grade cattle, which ones you buy on a farm, they actually look on a dairy cow. You look for feminine features. Isn't that crazy? You're taught, like in agribusiness school, like the top school, you look for like a cow that has bigger eyes because it's a healthier female. So a lot of this shit we argue about, nature already figured this out. So obviously humans are complex and there needs to be some variation and there's a little leeway, but their patterns are here, man. The patterns are here. Men are big, strong, shit ton of testosterone, psychopaths, almost all males. You look on Wikipedia, last 1,000 serial killers, 990 of them were men. Men are more ruthless with stuff like that. So I think there's a lot of truth. I'm a pretty alpha dude. I'm not the most alpha guy, but I'm alpha enough. I do better with feminine women. I've tried the girls that I've lasted the longest with were my opposite because I get enough of myself. When I come home, I'm like, shit, I don't want myself. You know what I'm saying? I do agree though with you on one thing. I'm not having kids with no fucking absolute stupid woman because you will dilute your IQ too much. You will dilute if you're a smart dude, you can't be with the fucking moron. Like that shit is too much of a dilution. But I don't know if I tend to not date women that are exactly into science and this and that, you know, but anyway.
Well, and don't you think that, well, okay, so then when age comes into play and you're like a 35-year-old man.
Well, now we're getting into it. Well, we started bringing up age.
Well, no, because you're saying you don't want to date a dumb woman. And then like age doesn't mean you're dumb. If you're 21 years old, you could have a high IQ or be intelligent, but you just don't have the life experience and the knowledge that comes with all those years. So there's still going to be a huge gap.
That's good though. Men want that. We want women that are moldable. Like women value competence. We don't give a shit about
just
that.
like click on these people, attack.
Some women are not moldable, and you will find that out once you're with them. And with them.
I go to the yellow and then
Then we leave.
red.
Yeah.
Simple.
I mean, yeah. If a girl's not, you want a girl that's gonna follow your lead. She's gonna be moldable. She's gonna be more on your program. Like guys masculine men want to be with women that are gonna follow them.
So you don't want a woman who's like, okay, oh, you want this? Okay, I know what to do. Like, okay, here, I'm gonna do this.
Huh?
You want a woman who's gonna be like, huh? What do I do? Can you tell me what to do?
Yeah, you teach her one time, and then she's gonna learn, and she'll do it, and then she gets it.
Yeah.
So but shouldn't she like maybe learn from her parents or her family how to?
I mean, that's fantastic if that happens, but let's be honest here. Most girls come from a single parent household with a single mom, right?
Most girls do.
I wouldn't say
yes.
that.
Yes, most people don't have two-parent households in the United States.
You mean, okay.
Maybe
they're not married yet.
Okay. Maybe nowadays. All right, one sec.
Sam here. What's hot? This Sumo Stream Box I got free for 12 months with Spectrum One Stream. It brings together live TV and hundreds of streaming apps, so everything is in one place. And the voice remote makes finding shows a breeze. Get the details at spectrum.com.
Are you still Zillow-ing for the perfect house?
What? No. Maybe yes.
Well, now you can Zillow a home loan and an agent to get you that house you've been dreaming of. Ooh, I love this for you.
We got here. Ace. You guys see that clip of Neon and Sam? He made her block a dude on IG, and she was throwing a fit because of it, and then she was.
Yo.
And then she was trying to
my
get
God.
Neon to
Jesus
block Myron
Christ.
afterwards as well. LMFAO, and said there's no reason that he should be friends with you. She mad. Well, man, like guys, you gotta understand when you expose female nature, girls don't like that because you take their power from them.
Not only that, you're fucking with her bag. Like I sat here, like it was funny. If you actually, and I know you guys have a lot to do, but you could sit. Neon was sitting right here. You could see his facial expressions changing when you guys gave him something to think about. He was like, huh. And sometimes he would kind of laughingly joke about it with old girl, but you could tell that he was really kind of serious. And then when you guys put her feet to the fire, hey, delete your OnlyFans now. Well, it's not worth it for me. Well, that tells us all we need to know.
Genuinely, I can tell that she doesn't like him.
Of course.
But for the camera, she does.
Of course.
So ask her a question. If you're so invested in him, get off camera for 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, no, she ain't gonna do that. That's the reason she's like, yeah. She ain't gonna do that.
She's
No.
all cap.
So if you're gonna hustle me, at least this is I'm not
be honest about it.
Right. Look, I'm not into paying for bots. You guys know how that goes. But a John and a Lady of the Night, that is probably the closest to a transactional relationship as there could be. The John knows what he's getting. The Lady of the Night knows what she's doing it for.
Yeah.
But when you get girls like, and there have never been as many young millionaires as there are right now.
100%.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember
18,
the average
20.
age of a millionaire is usually like in the 50s or something. They're young millionaires, especially in Miami. These girls are they're still going to go after the high NBA, NFL guys, but now they're targeting these Bitcoin guys, these streamers, and you can see them just getting hustled. Like the kid looks like he's 13 years old.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, when I first started watching the episode, I don't mean to suck all the air out of the room, but I thought it was like an act. I was like, this can't be real. But the longer it went on, the more obvious it became. And
But the problem is that younger guys aren't learning game, and they're not learning about the red pill unless they're watching this show or other shows. And it's just like they need to. And if you make a lot of money young, and then you start dealing with some girl, and she's got bad intent, then you are going to be fucked.
Stupid.
Yeah.
No,
So,
absolutely.
and that's why this stuff is so valuable, because dudes, there are so many dudes out there. We think, because we operate in these circles, we think everyone kind of knows this stuff. They really fucking don't. They really don't.
I'll tell you this: we had from his stream, I think there were like Mo. What was the numbers on that one? Like 50, 60K watching or whatever it was on Kick. What was it, Mo? It was 80?
How do I get 'em to
80K watching on Kick. And a bunch of them were saying like, El Byron, oh, these guys are assholes, blah, blah. So, I mean, a lot of guys are still plugged into the Matrix and like they are blue pill as hell, and they think, oh, no, it's completely appropriate for you to date a woman that's monetizing her sexuality on the internet. And I actually posted on Instagram earlier a reel, and I was saying, like, if a woman goes into a certain type of field where she's selling her sexuality, monetizing it, she no longer qualifies for a good man.
That's right.
She really doesn't.
Yeah. Not as a girlfriend. Not as a serious girlfriend.
Like a serious,
You know.
It's funny. So I got some intel after the show.
Uh-oh.
She said she was celibate,
Spill the
right?
tea.
So someone exposed her saying that like she's not celibate because she's smashing this guy from an app that she met, and it's funny because that guy has no clout, but he's getting to smash.
There you go.
Right.
Clout,
So he's the
money and status. And she's playing him because he's a virgin, and she don't want to smash.
That's right there.
I'm not opposed to it.
Look, that's hypergamy personified. Literally, alpha fucks, beta bucks.
I'll tell you something else about that as well, though. Guys will say, I had a comment even yesterday on my YouTube. Some guy saying, "Yeah, man, it's all about money." It's not all about. It's not all about money.
No,
I mean,
it's not.
of course, money is attractive as part of the overall package. But if you've got money, you're a dork. Then A, you're not going to get decent quality women, and B, if you do, you're going to get hustled.
Yeah.
And that's the fucking thing. A lot of guys don't realize that's another level of naivety, isn't it?
And now with social media, I would argue there's a third factor. There's clout.
Yes.
Like girls nowadays, like if you have, like if you're a streamer, you're
She
a guy
was
that's
real
famous,
quick. She's like,
etc.
I met him when he had 20,000 IG followers. I was like, how do you know that?
That's another currency that girls use nowadays is if you're big on social media, you're able to girls are going to come and gravitate towards you, especially if you're like a streamer and these girls are predatory. They got like an OnlyFans or something like that. They're going to use it to their advantage to, bring their subscribers up.
Yeah. She lied. She said she didn't get much money.
Well, actually, Rouge V back in the day once said, I think this was about seven or 8 years ago, and he said, in the future, game is not going to be enough. You're going to need fame as well.
Yeah,
obviously
he did.
and he's right, wasn't he?
He did say that.
Yeah.
And I really want everyone to everyone should read Rouge's book. I'm going to get him on the show, man, at some point. I know he switched up and he's more religious now.
Man, dude.
But
I've been working on him for years, too.
But what I will say is that his book Game, which is the last book he wrote before he
was
took the God pill. The opening chapter actually put it in my book because I thought it was so good, and he made a lot of predictions that are true. And that book was written like in 2018, 2019.
Yep. Yeah.
He talked about how the sexual marketplace has changed significantly thanks to the advent of the smartphone and social media, and how, just like you said, fame is going to be something also that's very important to women. And I would say the more women that have social media, that get on Instagram, etc., the more fame is going to be important to them. Like that's a currency nowadays, like a big one. Versus 10 years ago, it didn't matter as much.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a currency because it's so easily monetizable. With regards to money, looks, and status will most certainly make a difference in terms of the opportunities you get, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Money, looks, and status gets you more opportunities, but if you don't understand how to handle women, you go from becoming a high-value man to being a mark,
Well, this
like
is
our guy Neo.
basically on
But like you said, like there is this kind of the dating marketplace, it seems to me, is becoming much more of a grey area now, where money is coming coming into play, in the sense that you've got a lot of girls on the arrangements apps, the sugar baby apps. There's also a lot of girls on Instagram, and they're getting, as we all know, they're getting flown out, not just to buy, but going on trips and going around Europe and all this kind of stuff. And they're obviously getting like sponsors to do that. So money is playing a part, in that sense, and actually the market in a way is becoming more transactional. But at the same time, like you said, if you don't know what you're doing, even if you've got the money, you're going to be completely fucked over.
Yeah, I would argue in today's day and age, you need red pill awareness now more than ever.
Would you say, because I've seen it argued even in mainstream, like soft prostitution is becoming more of a reality now, and I think there's truth in that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
so this one,
the fact that women are able to, let's not even go into OnlyFans, because OnlyFans is obviously at the end of the spectrum. You could take an average girl that's literally, I've seen regular chicks that have 1,000 followers, whatever, and they got their Cash App in their bio.
Which one should
their
I
Venmo.
be? These guys,
and girls are able to monetize just off being in the internet, because what they've been able to do essentially is they're able to scale their sexuality to an unprecedented number of simps. And most guys, if not taught this information, default to simping. They default to chivalry. They default to the nice guy, right? And what I tell guys is you need to understand that women are predatory, and they can extract resources from you if they will do so. Like, they're not going to sit there and say, oh, don't give me money. Oh, don't give me attention. They're not going to tell you to stop being a simp because it benefits them.
Yeah. Well, I was dealing with this girl in Mexico last week, and she was telling me she's got a Twitter account. I don't think it's particularly big, but she puts up like some sexy pictures. Nothing pornographic, but just some hot pictures. She does a bit of the cosplay and all that stuff. And she said, yeah, guys just send me money. And she's like, and she was kind of giggling about it. She wasn't even being super gold diggery about it. She was just like, yeah, it's weird, but I'm not going to say no.
Yeah, that's normal nowadays.
You got girls not even wondering why they're getting Cash Apps now. Well, this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I liken it to the fact of fishing, right? So us as RP guys, we help guys catch the fish.
Right.
Obviously, you go on your boat to the water, and it takes time to learn how to catch fish. Once you catch fish, you're good at it over a period of time.
Yep.
But nowadays, what happens is most guys, they come into it, so you know what, I can just buy the fish and get it right away with no work.
Yeah, right.
So that happens all the time, even in the real world. We go outside nowadays, they'll say, oh, pay me for sex, which to me is disgusting, but people do all the time. So we just say, put in the work, go fishing yourself, learn how to fish. Once that's done, why pay for something that's free?
Right. Exactly.
Why pay for it? It's free.
But I will say that there's a demographic of female that won't deal with you unless you pay. Like, there's just some girls that they'd be around celebs and they're like, blah blah.
Those girls are ruined, man.
Those girls. Yeah,
that is true, but pay in what
them.
way? Pay for box or pay for the experience?
Well, I think there are some girls. I think there's a glass. I think there's a glass ceiling with some women where if you're not living a certain type of lifestyle, that they're used to, they're not gonna fuck with you, and they might even be attracted to you, but they're just going to be like, no, I'm not taking this further, because they expect, and it's not even, they're not asking for money as such, but they want a certain level of experience.
And that's fine. Like, that's why I tell guys, like, make the money so you can like show that you can like potentially do it, but you don't actually do it.
It's almost right. Dangle the carrot. Almost.
You got to dangle the carrot for these hoes.
It's funny. You get women on here all the time who want to chastise guys like you. Well, the reason why you want a young experienced girl, is so that you can take advantage of her. Dude, 95% of what women say, what comes out of their mouth when they're talking about relationships, it's all projection.
Yeah.
The reason why a woman says you want a young and inexperienced girl so that you can take advantage of her is because they know that's what they would do. Case in point, Sam and Neon.
Yeah.
Nobody's all up in arms for this woman basically grooming this kid who doesn't know any better, right? Yeah. Women are protected from male nature all the time. But men are never protected from female nature.
There's this perception that women are these. There's still in the culture. There's this perception that women are these innocent, naive.
I can't believe that. It's ridiculous.
I think women. We all know women are more socially savvy than dudes. And even a girl who's 19, 20, 21, they tend to be much more.
I actually might.
Not just sexually, they are sexually, but also just in the hustle. You know, they're very Machiavellian, right? A lot of them, they really fucking get it, and they know how to play guys. And you know, again, not saying they're all bad people, but guys have got to be on their game. They've got to know what the fuck.
Because I mean, and I keep telling guys this, and they don't get it because they tell me you're an asshole. Why do you employ these strategies? Blah blah blah. Why do you tell guys this stuff? And the reason why is because
tomorrow.
Imagine, you know, you're getting hit on, and
I stream every day. Every day of the week,
offered
except for
situations from the time you hit puberty.
Yep.
Yeah.
By the time a girl's
All right.
21 years old, she's pretty much mastered how to deal with
you guys on Monday.
the opposite gender.
Yeah.
Most guys.
And Clay probably won't see you again. All right.